you want to play it, then I'd be banning the Valkyrie out.
Well, let's see what maps they're going to have to worry about here. First up is Oregon, picked out by Team Liquid, BDS picking Bank, and finally our decider, Theme Park. Just your overall thoughts of all of this?
I would say that probably on these first two maps, what we would see, it will be a game around the Ink and Mira ban from the BDS side. They were banning it a lot on during the first stage of these groups. And we saw Liquid banning a lot of Thatcher and Maverick. They don't want these operators open in any of the maps that they are playing in it. And we see as well a lot of amount of bans in Kite. So Oregon and Bank are perfectly to have these bans.
I think stylistically both of these teams have picked into a weak map for the opposition. Obviously Bank, we know Liquid, it's like their knife preference map. They'd really rather not play it, but they left it open, so BDS picked it. The other way around for Liquid is, you know, Liquid have picked into Oregon, BDS got rid of Villa Chalet, which is their low preference map. Liquid have just picked the lowest preference. The curious thing for me is actually the decider map, because BDS, they had the option between Skyscraper or Theme Park. They've chose to ban out Skyscraper, which is a favorite of theirs. They love to play it. They'll play anybody on it, choosing to go to Theme Park.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. It's time to introduce our team, so let's put them up on the stage.
Welcome back to the main stage, where our first two semi-finalists are pacing backstage right now, eagerly awaiting to win this first best of three. Oh, it's going to be exciting. Our first competitor that is going to take to the stage, they have not dropped a single map yet. So they're going to have their eyes on that final tomorrow, you can rest assured. Please, welcome to the stage, all the way from Europe, BDS. Sorry, not BTS, BDS.
فريق BDS وصل للمسرح، ولا ننسى انهم هو الفريق الوحيد اللي الى الان ما خسر ولا ما من بدايه البطوله. كل المباريات اللي لعبوها في الجروب ستيج كان ادائهم فيها مره متميز، لكن خصمهم بدا بدايه صعبه شوي في البطوله. خسر مباراته الاولى، نزل اللور براكيت، لكن قدر انه يرجع يسوي كومباك جدا عظيم، والان وصل هو من التوب فور معنا في البطوله. اعزائنا المشاهدين والحضور، رحبوا معنا بتيم ليكويد.
Tensions are building here on the main stage. One team will advance to tomorrow's final and one team will be sent packing. Say no more. Let's go back over to the desk so they can break everything down before we dive into this match.
نقطة جدا مهمة أعزائنا المشاهدين والحضور، لا ننسى أن كل المباريات اللي بتكون معنا بتكون سنجل إليمينيشن، معناته إذا خسر فريق ما راح يقدر يكمل البطولة، ما عاد صار في فرصة ثانية، يا أما أنك الآن بتكون من التوب 4 أو أنك تكون من التوب 2، فمين الفريق اللي بياخذ المقعد الأول؟ هل تيم ليكويد يقدر يستمر؟ هل فريق BDS يقدر يستمر أيضا على أدائه؟ كلنا ما ندري، بس على طول نتكلم عن المباراة عند الاستوديو التحليلي.
Thank you very much. And we saw LMs and PSK looking at one another. It's a stare down on the stage between the two teams that, you know, they're fairly well decorated and they've had a lot of experience in their own regions. Finding them now against one another at the Gamers8 stage, something that I'm very much looking forward to. Nesk versus Shaiko. When is that not something you want to watch? But let's talk about Oregon. Our first map picked up by Team Liquid. BDS is starting on the defensive side. Jack, how are you seeing BDS's chances here?
I think BDS, you know, it's a low preference map, and I keep talking about preference and maps. It's a low preference map for BDS, but they still love to play it. There's still a spot named after Shaiko on the map. Do you know what I mean? They are happy defending it. We saw them play it against Falcons in this tournament, and they went almost flawless on their defenses. And I think one of the big things, I'm going to say it again, is that Valkyrie. I think Liquid just have to get rid of the Valkyrie because they're starting on the attack. Unless they've got a specific plan to use it, they're going to endure 6 rounds of Shaiko on Valkyrie, and I would not want that myself.
We are used to see Shaiko and LMs playing really well in any map that they play.
Yes.
But I would say that for this match, they need Rafal to perform. They need Rafal to do in their position really, really good in this game. They need him to be this pillar for the team to get ready for whatever Liquid has prepared for them.
And who has to do that for Liquid?
Oh, I mean, it's one of them. Liquid are actually putting in quite a big team performance. You know, we're not just talking about, sure, Nesk and Pala are the top 2 rated players for this roster. They are always going to be the top 2 rated players. But even Ask and Resets, they've been stepping up themselves, particularly Resets, particularly in the kills department. You know, he's been doing very well. So I really see this as 2 teams that are used to getting to this stage of the competition, but also used to going out at this stage of the competition in the semi-finals, that both operate as team units. And I can't wait to watch it because the 2 teams, there's going to be not much change in either of their playstyles for each other. So it's just 2 teams going at it.
We talked about the Valkyrie ban then. What could Liquid use to their advantage? Banning something else, maybe that would help them out. Come the side switch, maybe when BDS are on the attack, because BDS's attacks are pretty good too.
I think that probably Liquid will be banning Kite for this map. They don't want to have this problem in the laundry attack. They just want to open all the hatches and try to secure one of these important winning rounds for them. So I just would say that if Liquid wants to keep their straight line of victories in this map, they will need to keep these vetoes without trying to be so creative on that.
We talk about Oregon as the game of the third bomb site, right? Because Laundry Supply, you're expected to win on the defense. Kids' dorms, you're expected to win on the defense. It's always about that meeting kitchen or kitchen dining bomb site as to if the attack can win it out or not. Obviously, I think that's where the big battle will come. Genuinely, you know, I would not be surprised to see in Oregon where we get a 4-2 defense split where the primary bomb site is won by the defenders, the tertiary bomb site is won by the attackers, and the same vice versa, and then we have to see it out in overtime.
It's something you talked about quite a bit, Twister, that 3rd bomb site. How will teams perform on it? Do you see any kind of secret strategies Liquid have in store for us here?
Yesterday, we saw Liquid had plenty of good rounds on this 3rd bomb site. We saw them winning a lot of retakes, actually, with SSG trying to do some plants. So I would say that probably in this match, we will see them trying to be a little bit more aggressive, using that Eco and Yokai drones to do this aggression on tower or mini tower advances, and maybe not let BDS go into the execution. Because if they do, they probably will not be doing that retakes.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. Our game is pretty much ready, so how about we say hello to our casters on the other sides. It's our wonderful Blue and X. Gentlemen, how are you doing today?
Doing pretty good, Milos. It's a pleasure to be here once again as we move into our playoff bracket. Not only with X, of course, for this match once again. Liquid going up against BDS. Only one of these Titans can move forward into the grand finals. We've had the stunning results show up inside of the group. We've had 2 new challengers show up at the other end of this bracket. More on that later, however, as it's time to focus up on Oregon. Bit of a double-edged sword here at the event so far from Team Liquid. They lost it once in kind of stunning fashion, but they were able to crush SSG on it towards the end of the group. So we'll have to wait and see how they'll fare on it today versus BDS.
two titans going up against each other here tonight, Blue. You've got Liquid, you have got BDS, both incredible teams in their own right and region, and both good teams internationally, although as Fresh said, they have never gone the whole way. One of them is going to at least get to the finals here now. Just a quick history lesson before we jump into this one. They've played each other a couple of times, and by a couple I literally mean two. The only real one of note is going to be in 2021 at SI, where the map was Oregon, and the map was won very convincingly by BDS. Obviously, that is a heck of a long time ago. A lot of things have changed, but it'd be nice for Liquid to be able to level that up to one apiece.
No surprises really on the bans so far. Liquid not wanting to deal with the countercade pressure coming in, especially on basement hatch play. A few other areas where it could become problematic as well, so they'll be knocking him out. And then finally, again, a pretty standard ban here with Mira being the last one to be removed from play. That'll take us into the first round. If you didn't catch it on the top of your screen, it's now in the middle, as well as Team Liquid starting on the attack, BDS on the defense. You more than likely expect that basement start for BDS here as we get ready to jump into the first round.
No one wants to deal with Ying these days, do they? Ying is fastly becoming one of the most banned attackers. And I think at least inside of Gamers8, Ying has seen some of the most bans attracted throughout the entire attacking pool. And of course, one of the reasons for that is these aggressive and coordinated pushes, especially onto somewhere like the basement. It could be just a little too much to deal with. Now, obviously, with the Thatcher and the Cade ban, it does make life a tad easier for the attackers. Although, if Breed is just going to open the hatch for you, then, I mean, I guess it's a moot point, right?
Not too much of an issue there, as clearly BDS want to bait their opponents into that a little bit. Liquid would be able to get that open eventually anyway, and with Cade banned out, there's not really anything they could use to prevent it. So as you said, just make it a bit more easy for the players on the attacking side. Away from that, though, no huge surprises, especially when it comes to our defensive lineup. No repicks either, as Liquid will be satisfied with what they bring. Interesting that we'll see a Lion here for PSK specifically. Have to see how that's going to be used, either to suss out some of these early extensions from BDS, such as into the small tower, as well as yellow that we're seeing now, or if it's going to be saved more so to confuse on the execute.
I think Fresh is probably mauling right now because Shaiko has been allowed to get the Valkyrie again. It's been a hot topic of conversation throughout the course so far. Palu, though, storms his way in, immediately taking down Renshiro. Renshi just getting caught in full sprint animation then. Unfortunate timing indeed, as Liquid, they've not wasted any time getting themselves established upstairs.
But indeed, coming in with a booming start to this one, knocking out Renshiro. That'll remove the mute. Obviously, not the end of the world, leaving the mute out of it, as his utility will have been deployed in the prep phase, but still going to hurt here in the long run, as Liquid will certainly have a lot of confidence to clear out the rest of the upstairs, as well as probably the first floor here. I'll just pull land hammer for him. Quick adjustment, though. He's able to knock that down and establish this angle to possibly knock out the next target. Alem's actually going to be sticking around the challenge. This explains the reason why we had the electrical hatch left open, so Alem's can still play this safely and nicely done. Remains stable despite the first shot coming out against him, and he's able to return fire with a clean headshot to knock out Palu.
Great play by Alem's, a real big playmaker so far for BDS inside of the tournament. He steps up there again, managed to get the fadeaway shot. May have given up the control of meeting, but he's got a very important kill back onto Palu, removing a couple of the nades. Only two left now in the hands of Resets. And of course, you want that fragging power that Palu brings at the later point inside of the round. Liquid now just looking to stabilize. They can see, obviously, that the meeting hatch is open. And Alems is going to be throwing as many Kiba barricades down as he can on that basement level just to assist some of these angles. BDS have a good hold currently on that back stair. They've actually used one of the Kiba barriers to block up the electrical door as well. We're now going to see the wall get open now just to give a little bit of a line of sight onto the back stairs. And it looks as though Nesk is going to be tasked with the difficult job of pushing down Freezer, excuse me.
Keep a barricade going to come out for Alems as well to allow more extended play to the depths of Freezer. Hot nade coming out from Resets as well, but it's not going to find a target, and he gets baited into thinking there'd be one in Laundry. That'll lead to his elimination, but Liquid already making up for it. Nesk can now ask for a second one. Able to bring it all down to Shaiko here in a 1v3. No way to deny the plan either. He's got a hot ping onto at least one member of the opposing squad, but it's going to end up being bad intel as he moves himself out. Won't be able to find the lineup for it this far back. Has to adventure a bit further forward to be able to knock one of these players out. The longer he waits, the more secure the members of Team Liquid will be. Already moving the planter way upstairs to play a hatch position. This is going to be rough for Shaiko, and more than likely, we're going to be looking at round one going into the pocket of Team Liquid.
Got another Lion Scanner coming out there just to seal the deal here. Liquid aren't peeking onto this one little bit. Nesk, he knows he's got the heads up in this gunfight. He knows he's got the advantage. Still doesn't want to take it. Shaiko, full white flash, 12 seconds left. Gets a glimpse at someone at the bottom of main stairs, but look at Liquid. Patience of saints. They are not looking to move at all. Nesk finally hits him with a little bit of a swing as the time was already ticking too low. A difficult job to push through that freezer, but Liquid made it look easy.
Definitely the case. Liquid really getting themselves off to a booming start in that round as well, finding the first kill on the second floor inside, I believe, the first 30 or 40 seconds, so beautifully done. Liquid never taking a foot off the gas pedal. Good attempts from Lems and some of the other members on BDS to resist it, but the entry power just far too strong, as well as the plan to actually clear out the interior of the site. BDS just could not contend against it, and as we see, Shaiko as well did not stand a chance in the 1v3.
Got a couple of great shots there of Nest picking up a couple of those kills inside of the freezer. Not going to be able to do that this round, though. BDS are going to stick to a rotation. They're not going to re-attempt downstairs, and instead they're going to take us up to Kids' dorms. Not too much of a change in terms of the lineup, other than Lems bringing Oryx. Speaks to a little bit more flexibility there, getting himself in and around. He's going to be opening up a couple of hatches, giving himself some options for later on into the round. Liquid with a couple of little six picks of their own. Nothing too drastic. Swapping operators between Resets and Nesk. Palu just going to 6 off. In fact, it's almost it's a full 4-way switch, that, isn't it, really? They're going for a heck of a different lineup. PSK on the Nook. Excuse me, what's going on here? PSK is usually flank watch, dirty work. He doesn't get the glamorous jobs.
He's going to take charge a little bit on this round here. Liquid switches things up, maybe expecting to see that basement play repeat itself, but surprise as BDS moves themselves on to the second floor instead. Either way, this lineup that Liquid have is going to work perfectly fine for the assault of the second floor. You also have that active resistance that's going to show up all across the second floor here, even extending into Arsenal, which could be a little bit dangerous from time to time for our defenders just because of the angles the attackers will have access to right at the beginning of the round. But as you can see here on Shiro, he has options specifically to get himself across the hall into Master, so this plan is not without its own merit. Resets and the rest of Liquid, though, just beginning their initial clear, as you can see over here towards Small Tower. They want to deal with some jump out at the midpoint of this round from that Small Tower. It's more like I can expect some contention towards the big window to try and play into these two sites.
Ranchiro there, ready to replace the Kiba barricade. He's got a couple knocking around there inside of bedroom, one inside of armory as well. Just cutting off these angles and giving Liquid a little bit less to play with. Looks like PSK is going to go for a little bit of a drone here. It's a drone position that you can certainly take into your ranked games if you wish, but he gets a bit of info, knows that somebody's going to be inside of Kids. It's fairly obvious that somebody will be playing in there, but it allows Nesk now to do the same and just check out that dorms area.
Liquid already making progress in opening up the angle to access the attic for themselves. That'll lead directly into the site once they're ready to go for it here. The rest of the squad not able to make progress on a secondary angle just as of yet, though, but they have the presence, as you can see, once again, near that big window that we discussed earlier. Going to be focusing on the drone play now, as they still have the threat of her fall from down below, and that's going to be problematic if they try to boost forward through attic and take direct control of the second floor. Going to need to keep a constant flank watch if that'll be the case due to this player downstairs, and that's assuming, of course, that Liquid have actually caught them. I believe that is the case, and indeed, we'll see it now, as Ask has a direct drone on top of that, but still, first kill of the round ends up going to BDS. Lems' extended position works out well for him. He'll be able to frag out Palu. That's going to eliminate the Yana, as well as that extra intel that would have come in from the clone now gone. Nesk as well, directly challenging Rafal, but almost doesn't seem ready for the fight when he's thrust into it. So he goes down. Ask will be able to correct slightly, and now even the numbers out as he gets 2 on his entry into games.
Reset's just having a little bit of a hard time there with the lifeline. Is going to get himself caught here. Takes a lot of damage, but he's got the LMG and he can continue to take this engagement. But look at the team play. BDS are there ready to collect as one turns tail and runs the other way. Another appears out of the shadows.
BDS keep themselves tricky inside of that round, constantly shifting the positions around and constantly keeping Team Liquid guessing, always forcing them to try and make up for deficits with kills, as we saw there in the midpoint of that round when they went for the entry on games, but it proved to not be enough. The refrags and the re-entry into the site from BDS holds true, and they tie it up now at 1-1, moving us into round 3 here. We'll have to see who takes charge. Obviously, BDS not really going to be wanting to go for the tertiary site just yet. There is going to be a slight change up to the strategy, though, at least, as we move back down to the basement. At least they'll bring a Thunderbird into this one to give them a little bit more fighting capability as we get towards the later portion of the round.
I think the Thunderbird's a bit of a strange one because I don't recall lots of nades being prevalent. Partly Short lost his life first, so wouldn't have been there to use the nades, and you know, he lost 2 essentially as soon as he fell. There was another 2 in the hands of Resets, I believe it was, but we didn't see them really come through. Obviously, Thunderbird is there to give you a little bit of a juice up, give you that little bit of a stim, but you don't really want to be relying on taking a gunfight and then running back to it. It's more just a nice to have. Usually you're looking to try and burn some utility with that and tank a few nades, get yourself into a bit of a riskier situation, then run back and juice back up. We'll have to see if Liquid have that same success on the entry though, as that was really what you could credit round number 1-2 for.
Just the usual opening of those first few windows and doors here for Liquids. Nothing crazy going to be going on inside of this first minute. BDS does have that extension to play out a little bit more, as we can see on both the first and second floor. Definitely wanting to play around with this, especially considering they have the Thunderbird, as now they are able to gain a little bit of that HP back if things go awry and they lose a portion of their health before they are able to get themselves back into the basement. Away from that, though, are going to see some earlier retreats, especially from players like Lems. Just wanted to poke out from the top freezer stairs and see if he could maybe get lucky with a pick there. Not going to be able to find it. You can see that Liquid has taken full control of the kitchen as well as dining area, so that'll more than likely move them to the hatch breaching phase of the round, which then they can begin to focus on how they'll make their descent into the basement.
Clearing the way.
A little bit of a rejuggle of some utility here as Rafal replaces an ADS, realizing that a push is coming in from that direction now. Nesk looking to take his stand inside of Freezer, somewhere that he was very successful previously, and this is almost a full utility switch around here from BDS. They're making rotations, they've moved the deployable shield off the 90 elbow inside of Blue, and instead they're going to play it the other way, looking into Laundry. They've got the time to do so, and they also have that utility still there, because Liquid haven't directly pressured, they haven't been interested in pushing in through Bunker, and they haven't really been too interested in those back stairs. Obviously, knowing that Shaiko is going to be in and around that area, it's somewhere that you're worth steering clear of.
Players starting to begin poking down into the basement here, and the first volley from BDS is not going to ring true here. Adrenal Surge to boost the play from Liquid as well. We're not seeing them boom into the site just as of yet. Need to try and get that first entry, which will activate the rest of the team more than likely, give them the confidence they need to move forward. Thankfully, BDS has been saving their delay utility here. The first of the 3 Toxic Babes, only just now going to come out from Brede over at the 90 wrap inside of Freezer here. He can extend that probably to right around the 20-second marker on this round, but there is going to be breaching charges moving in from the Zofia now as the team attempts to work their way forward. It'll work out for Liquid too as PSK strikes first, resets with the second pickup, and they're going to swarm in, completely surrounding the BDS roster. Lems will get 1 exchange, but otherwise it's perfect from Liquid as they once again take control of the basement defense.
We had a great overhead view of that as well. It was like wolves circling some prey, you know. Team Liquid were just firing themselves through. Very well timed, very well coordinated. BDS, they're just getting caught flat-footed. What can you do? If someone's willing to tank a little bit of Toxic Babe damage because you know that you've got someone pushing in from the other side and you have to be in position at all costs, and the kills start flying like that, those LMGs, there's not a great deal that you can do to stop it. Not only did we have resets, but we also had Nesk, 2 of the best LMGs in the game right now. They can take multiple engagements, no sweat whatsoever. Basement, so far, is something that BDS are struggling to keep a hold of, and that doesn't usually bode well for an Oregon.
Even worse as well, they don't really seem too confident in potentially trying out their tertiary site on the first floor, so this is going to start to look a little bit rough for them if Liquid continue to take control. Obviously, they realized that the Thunderbird in the last round wasn't really a great idea. I agree with that. They weren't really able to use it too much for their roam game as they got killed pretty much instantly, and inside of the site, the execute from Liquid was just far too quick to realistically make use out of any of those Kona stations, so without that delay, BDS is not going to find a use from those healing stations, and they'll get ready for go to a much more traditional setup to try and hold basement. And again, I think they're going to try to do it in that bunker style way here that work a little bit better for them, but overall still a very one-sided round for Liquid.
They're bringing the catches this time, aren't they? They've doubled down. They've got the Jaeger and the Wamai. They've got rid of the Thunderbird, as you say. It speaks to, right, we're just going to try and do this a little bit better. Still send a Lems to play loose on the Malusi at the start of the round and see if there's anyone that he can pick up for free. Even if he just denies a couple of drones and gets himself back alive, it'd be a job well done, but instead gets a freebie. That's a real big miss drone from Liquid as Nesk is going to fall here.
Lems perfectly free to get himself back downstairs as well as Nesk was very much proceeding on his lonesome. Zero support for him in that avenue, so no chance of a trade to show up anytime soon to get revenge for Nesk's death. The rest of the team now just going to safely tuck themselves away here in the basement. No further extension, so Liquid will have full control over the first and second floors. It'll take them a moment to realize that, but as we spoke about last round, just move on to the hatch breaching phase and then try to clear things out from there. And you can see that they don't necessarily know that these players have fallen back yet. Just a few pre-fires coming out from Liquid as they try to move into security. But other than that, things are going to go quiet for the next minute or so here as Liquid starts to postulate how they'll be able to work themselves into the basement now without their Zofia.
It's a really big operator to lose as well. Think about the role that Nesk has been playing. He's been so consistent inside of Freezer. He might be sat at 4 and 3, but he's had some very impactful kills. And without that now, someone's going to have to plug that gap. And that means that you're going to have to look to someone like PSK or Palu to go and do that job. And neither of those two operators, no one really is going to do it as well as a Zofia could or would. And couple into that, you're going to lose the LMG as well, which Liquid have been relying on, as do many attacking teams inside of the current meta. And you do just fear that without that alternate angle, without that third-pronged push, Liquid might look to go for something a little bit different here.
Statistically, they could try to put Ask in the front of this. He's had some good results on entry, specifically for the second floor clear, but obviously he's playing a much more pivotal role right now, and he's got limited ammo to work with. There we go, the resets and Palu able to hold on, but Ask will be lost in the process, so somebody's gonna have to put that case down on the ground regardless. Numbers are even, and there's a good amount of excess time still for Liquid as well, but they're in a bit of an awkward position now. Resets only just barely able to get himself down that back staircase. A little bit worried about someone potentially peeking out from the hall doorway as well, so I'm gonna keep constant overwatch on that. Palu when I move in to check the angle and gets a swinging headshot against the Lems as well. So Liquid with some great control, finally able to stabilize a plant position for themselves. They'll go for it. This toxic bait is going to show up too late. And oh, great pickup as well from Resets, but the shotgun shell went out and it denied the plant, but it won't matter as the trades come in too strong from Liquid and they win it on the TDM.
Resets is built differently. That is not the first time he's had a huge round here in Gamers8. The fearlessness from Palu to plant. I was looking at it, I was going, oh, that looks so risky. Man, that looks so risky. But he knows that he's got his teammates covering his back. And sure, he gets swung. He gets the shotgun blast to the face, but the trade, bam, it's immediately there. Liquid did an incredible job of salvaging that round. And it was all down to a really ballsy play. They dropped E-Box. Dropping the electrical hatch very rarely works. Usually you are dropping into an absolute meat grinder. And it's crossfires galore. There's toxic babe canisters, you maybe throw a C4 into the mix. And somehow they had managed to pre-drone enough and gather enough information. We saw as Palu dropped the hatch. He was already trained onto one of the members of BDS. He knew exactly where they were. He had the red ping, and it's a pre-fire at that point, and he wins it out. And that was just the start of what came to be a bit of an avalanche there for Liquid. BDS really struggling on that ground floor, even when things look like they're going their way.
Great adjustment coming in from Team Liquid as well, immediately making up for the mistake that happened at the beginning of the round with regards to how they lost Nesk on the Zofia, but thankfully was able to group themselves up and play a strong buddy system, even with that risky plant too. We saw how quickly the player that took down the planter goes down. As Liquid realizing that potential issue is going to maybe stop them from closing it out, and they are able to win now a third round on the basement attack. BDS breathing a sigh of relief as obviously they've now unlocked the second floor for play again, but this is going to be the only site they've locked down so far, and obviously they win this one, they can't play it on the 6th, so what do? Do they try to go for basement for a 4th time, or do they finally bring out one of their kitchen sites and attempt to win a third round there? And that's still assuming they're able to get this second, of course.
I can't recall the last time I've seen a 2-4 split for attackers on Oregon. It's not something that happens all the time, especially when you're dealing with two teams at this sort of a level. It might be something that happens occasionally with some of the tier 3 teams that we've got inside of the competition in their home region, but realistically, you shouldn't be dealing with that kind of a scoreline when you've got a team like BDS facing off against Liquid. Liquid really are just one step ahead today. They look incredibly sharp. Maybe sharp enough to make it 5-1, we'll have to see. They didn't do fantastically in the early part of the round. I think there was a lot of bad information that got exchanged last time they attacked onto the top floor, and there was a really aggressive roam again coming from Lems, particularly playing on the Oryx. He's going to be doing the same here and now. One of the biggest problems was the hatch inside of Attic. Sure, you can get Attic wall open, but if there's going to be defenders playing in meeting, there's no real point in going through there. You need to clear out meeting as well.
So with already half the round gone, a relatively quiet one so far, BDS have to start getting a little bit worried considering how Liquid was able to come in with a booming execute on the last basement round, especially with the one before that as well. know that they're going to be building up an intel bank, and it's already wasted, not wasted, but used half their drone count in the process. They're trying to pick up this information. Finally going to start to see them venture forward a little bit. Obviously, they have the attic hatch access, but there is going to be someone else from BDS on the other side of it. Lems will start to try and pick this off, and he was able to get one on the previous defense too. Led into the reasoning as to how BDS was able to at least start to fend off some of this pressure from Liquid, and it's that same puzzle again that they'll have to solve here on round number 5. Liquid doesn't necessarily seem to have an easy solution to it either. Still just postulating, waiting for a mistake maybe to come out from BDS, but it's not happening. BDS's setup's going to remain stable as a rock. It's up to Liquid to change up that fate, and finally Paulo will do so, catching it off-screen kill. The Lems will be able to quickly trade that back though, so we go immediately into a 4v4. Rest of the team attempts to swing an axe, but Reset's been held up at the big window because of a toxic base. That's going to stall probably the rest of this as well. Shaiko with one, Lems with a second from down below underneath of the attic hatch, and that's going to leave Liquid, unfortunately, without really the capability to force their way into it. They'll just have to try and brute force the issue. Ask will be able to find the back of Lems, taking him down at least, but Shaiko immediately handles the exchange. And for PSK, nicely done in this first fight, but look at his HP. 1 bullet away from going down, 3 seconds away from the round ending. Also, it's just not going to happen. And finally, BDS will piece together a second round now.
Liquid really can't seem to crack that, can they? It seems very difficult for them to understand that there are 2 players inside of Meeting, Rafal backing up Alems, and they played it fantastically. Sure, you might lose Rafal, but if Alems is there, then it doesn't really matter. It is a 1-for-1 trade, and especially with Alems having the capability to hop up through the hatch on the old Oryx. Sure got traded out, but the damage at that point was done. And you've got to question PSK on the Nook again. It just doesn't seem to do any. We've obviously not got to see the intention behind that pick, but it just doesn't seem to have that same sort of bite that you would expect if you're going to have someone on a Nook, maybe crouch walking in. So maybe we get to see it at some point here, but at least it isn't going to be now. BDS are finally risking it, Blue. They are finally going to something that isn't downstairs.
You would think that'd be great for trying to sneak through like the small tower areas that look relatively undefended, and maybe trying to take out someone like a Lems who had been waiting out at beating, using the attacking utility to maybe use that, but just never ends up happening. So unfortunate for Team Liquid, but I doubt they're losing too much sleep over that round, considering how they've been able to handle at least the rest of these basement attacks. Now, this is the big question we were asking at the beginning of the last round as well. Is BDS going to have a strong showing here on their first floor hold, considering they avoided it despite 3 consecutive losses on the basement up until this very point? And obviously, this will be the very last round they have here on this half, so they have to hope they can make that impact and bring things to an even keel here at 3-3.
I think the Liquid are looking at this stunned, like, oh, I thought these guys were giving it to us. I thought we were just going to go rinse and repeat downstairs in basement again. We've got to actually try now. We've got to deal with the tertiary site. Right, get yourself in gear, guys. What are we going to do? Well, for the meantime, we've seen PSK pick onto the Nomad, so they're finally starting to address this roam game that BDS have been playing and the aggressive nature that Alems is bringing to this matchup. How much impact it will have does remain to be seen. But top floor is usually a pretty good place to start. Top floor clear is going to start to be put into action here, as we see the generator wall opened up there by Ask. Not looking to poke his head into it just yet, though, as there are plenty of heads here from BDS. They've got a real heavy top floor here, and they've got a lot of utility to chew through. Nesk, though, could have a little bit of an opportunity here up wide stairs. Nobody knows he's here. I'm not sure how he's managed to sneak his way into this position, but if he's patient enough, he might be rewarded.
Rest of Liquid here. Gonna build up the confidence to move themselves in. Nesk as well, deploying that utility to deal with the extensions. Using a lot of utility to box these players out. The good news is once they have the upstairs access, it will be a pivotal key to moving themselves downstairs as well here. Revolt could keep barricade. I believe the secondary breach on the Selma, though, is going to take it out before it can fully spread. So unfortunate. Won't be able to use that as much as he would have liked there. Away from that, we'll see him and a few of these other players start to fall back. Rafal, good thing he moves back too. He's nearly roasted by a frag grenade, down to about 20 HP now. They'll reconfirm his position, won't be able to contend from it though, as Ask quickly clips him off with the 1 bullet needed to finish him off. That's Liquid on the right foot forward, but time is quickly ticking down, so they have to move quickly from this point forward with only a minute remaining.
Bomb located by
this is where Paolo is going to get in and work his magic. Alems still with the option for a rotation here. Ask, meanwhile, takes down Renshiro, but Alems could cause all the damage required here. Freebie over onto Ask. His spidey senses were tingling. Ask was looking the right way, but he just got caught entirely off guard. Need now to retrieve that diffuser. Paolo going to try and throw a nade in deep, and he does, but it doesn't deal the finishing blow. Alems instead going to scurry away with just less than half HP.
Resets as well, not with the confidence to move forward. Can't really sound out the Geminis. I'm pretty sure he's alone as well. So it'd be too risky to try and put himself into that state without someone to make sure he doesn't get refragged here. Away from that, Shaiko now paying attention as the floor is quickly coming down from above him. Speaking of which, we've got players coming down as well. Shaiko ready for the initial challenge from Ness, but PSK will use that as a bait to trade it back out. Resets, confirms the rotation coming in from Alems and knocks him out as well, leaving it all on to Bride here in the 1v3. Bride will confirm the planter by finishing him off at least with the Toxic Babe, but he's still got 2 players to go. One's above him as well. He's got one of his own Toxic Babes sitting over the top of the case. Knows he won't have to worry about much in that department, but where exactly is this upstairs player going to be? He can truly only guess here. There's going to be a real lack for intel. I like the play again with the Babe here. It is going to hopefully fend off a winning angle, which could stop him from counter-defusing from up on top, but still, he's struggling to find this second player. Not going to be able to make it happen. Palu shuts it down, and it's indeed that 4-2 attacker-sided scoreline coming in for Liquid at the halfway mark.
Liquid are going to be pleased with themselves. That was a really good example of how they were able to adapt on the fly. Not the most straightforward of upstairs holds to crack there. You've got the keeper barriers, you've got Alems playing out there on the roam. One of the gunfights I really want to go back and see, and I hope we catch it in this, is I want to know how Nesk loses to Shaiko here. That was a scrappy gunfight from 2 of the best gunners that we've got in the entire game. You don't often see them going head-to-head like that, and both of them whiffing shots. Shaiko came off the better, but PSK was there for that all-important trade and to get the plant down, which ultimately was Liquid's win condition. Down to the basement we go here for Liquid's turn on the defense. Surely we've got to see a defending team win down here, Blue.
This has to be the lowest basement win rate in any game I've ever seen, at least. So we're going to have to hope that Liquid can be able to pick at least a 1 up and start to change it. Would move us up to a 25% defensive win rate on this site for this map, as currently it's sitting at a fat 0. 3 attempts from BDS over the course of the previous half, not one of them being successful despite multiple strategy and operator lineup changes as well. Just could not get it to work, only able to find that success on the second floor site, and of course the repeat of that later on in the game. Let's see how Liquid fares for it though, as they've got BDS out and about here. Double hard breach for them, just a little bit of a backup in the event that Bride should go down earlier on in the round, and away from that, your expected utility. We are going to get that Nook once again for Alems to see if he could sneak anything in from construction or any other parts of the map here, potentially to help with clearing out the roam game as well, as we do have quite a bit of it from Liquid. Nesk extended all the way up to the second floor. Currently only 1 player from Liquid actually in the basement.
Fortunately, they've got a couple of hatches open to work with, so they can have a reasonably quick drop down in. Lem's already getting himself into flags. He does have a drone working at his feet. You can hear that much is clear. The hatch and meeting will be closed. But look at the ground that he's been able to take here. Now, obviously his team isn't necessarily with him. He does have a drone knocking around, so he's going to have an idea of what's going on. Shaiko maybe now trying to jump in and just confirm that kitchen is indeed clear as well, as Alems really is on the hunt here. With the hatch open upstairs, he could do worse than just sit and watch that for a few seconds. But as we can see, Liquid, they have managed to sneak past, and they have retreated back down to the site.
Liquid quite elusive, not really able to obviously get in the way of BDS's clear here by taking out any of their players, but obviously not losing anything on their own regard either. So just gaining some intel, wasting out some time with postulating positions, but once more not wanting to take those risks on losing themselves entirely. They fall back. Nice clutch magnet here. Eats up Shaiko's nade as he was trying to bank it into the corner. Don't believe we had any presence from Team Liquid there at that point. The second one as well. Also going to get gobbled up here. So no luck, and the utility will be pretty minimal in terms of what it's taking out as well.
You hope Shaiko hasn't got a Gon 6 in his back pocket. We've got plenty of nades on the side of BDS. There's the Gon 6. I mean, why wouldn't you use it then? At least he knows that he's dealt everything he could possibly deal now, and he has eaten up a few of those magnets, ready for either Renshiro, Rafale, or Alems to use any of their frag grenades on the problem, and that's what we're going to see now. Rafale is going to make his way on down. Another magnet. PSK's been a busy
3 frags now.
He's been a busy guy with those magnets. Now we start with the keeper barricades and the engagement. It's going to be Resets credited with the kill, but it could have been Nesk equally as easily as he was there taking the head-to-head fight as well. Alems now got himself to the top of electrical hatch. He's going to be able to destroy 1 keeper barrier, but very easily will that be replaced. The nade comes in now to 90. Ask gets dealt half damage, but the Toxic Babes are cutting BDS off, and their time has disappeared in this round.
Probably going to play on the understairs position. Will wait to directly contest against anyone who tries to move forward here, but Lems, what an insertion, just dashes in from Hatch and steals 2 kills away. This is off the back of her Falls pick as well, but a good stoppage now coming in. However, Ask, he gets too aggressive, ventures too far out, leaves it open. Palu does the same thing, and that'll seal the round for BDS off the back of that beautiful play from the Nook.
We have still not seen a defending side win Basement Blue. Have we woken up in an alternate reality?
It's very weird in this game right now.
It's feeling a little bit strange, I'm going to be honest with you. Had it not been for a huge play from Lems, and look at what that means to him, by the way, that round would have been in the dust for BDS. They had no chance whatsoever. The fact that they came away with it is fantastic. Liquid needs to do a little bit of soul searching there. They need to figure out just how they allowed that to happen. I believe that one of the players that LMs was able to take out there was actually in cameras at that last stage. At least they were stood very still, maybe looking to play on some utility, but just caught entirely flat-footed. A quick drop was all it took, and with nobody keeping their eyes on that electrical hatch, it was very easy for LMs to come through. It isn't a play to rest your hat on, though. You can't rely on that every single round, but that's all that BDS needed to become one round closer to Team Liquid here.
So BDS start to bring themselves back into the fold, and quite quickly off the back of yet another, as you mentioned, attacking win on the basement site here. Still sitting at a 0% win rate for both teams on this potential bottom floor site. We'll see if Liquid has better luck on the retry, as they're finally going to throw a little bit more of a curveball at this one, bringing out the Clash to maybe add a direct obstacle for members of BDS to have to play against, one that'll certainly be quite annoying to deal with here. Looking at BDS, though, still with 8 frag grenades, we'll have to see how well the defensive utility is lined up. Obviously, we saw Liquid get the utility gold star as they nearly gobbled up half of those nades in the previous round just off of the Wamai magnets, but it's going to have to certainly do the same thing again here. As, yeah, Alem's walking all the way down to the bottom. We haven't seen the full fallback from Liquid yet. Nesk is still at the back of top stairs. So Lems is realizing this. Obviously, he doesn't want to fully push into the site, as he could just as easily get himself picked off from a counter angle, but this is a very dangerous position to hold, especially if Liquid hasn't realized it yet.
I don't think that Liquid know. Lems has got himself into the Viper's nest. It's got a great angle through. Palu, please, you cannot make this mistake. You've got to check the angle, gets the glimpse. I think Palu's seen this. He knows exactly what's going on, and the call will now come through. Lems, your job now is to get out of there alive. We're starting to see this utility get chewed up once again, as a magnet will be there to eat up the nade. Lems does get dealt a good chunk of damage, and deservedly so. You cannot play that cheeky and repeatedly get away with it. Shago nearly dishes himself a little bit of damage with his nade, as PSK is doing a great job of chewing this utility up. And now that Lems has shifted, he can make that rotation back.
Half the nades are gone again, and once more, 0 damage has been done to any of the defenders here, so the utility is rough at the moment for BDS. Obviously, we got the caveat that some of those may have been used to knock out utility, but oftentimes we have seen them be deployed, specifically at PSK here, with 0 results landing on top of him so far because of the great support coming in from those Wamai magnets, as of course the other forms of utility coming into play here from Palu as well. Rest of BDS now starting to work their way down, getting into an execute position. We've got just over a minute left here, as they know they need to force the problem, specifically in Freezer against PSK, but directly contesting against this could end up being a Formula 4 disaster if they don't have a true way to end up getting past him. Mind you, not really any stuns to play into, not anything that would severely affect PSK, like coming off of a Zofia lifeline charge or anything, so it's going to be a rough task to try and work themselves in through Freezer while PSK continues to stand in the way.
Renshiro's got a very difficult job here as well, solo pushing it in through bunker. Lems looking to make a hatch drop again. Surely Liquid cannot fall for that 2 rounds in a row. Toxic Babes to try and stem the attacking push coming in through Laundry, as Rafal and Brede are going to be lined up there. Brede just going to go for a little bit of a double check or rotation now. He's only got 25 seconds, might be looking to buddy up with a Lems here and try and get a plant down on the threshold. Still BDS waiting for the opportune moment. It's going to be a 5 versus 5 execute, 15 seconds and a Lems hits the drop, gets down for free as Ask shuts Shaiko down, knocking him to the floor. This time Nesk is there to collect. Resets jumps into the party as well. Rafal caught inside the barbed wire, goes for the revive. There's 4 seconds left. He ain't getting you up, my friend. Final couple of kills come through. Liquid, patience pays off. They win it out on time.
We'll see our first defensive win there on basement for either team, as Liquid is able to surge forward with that. Some rough start to this one, but is able to quickly correct. Now more than likely see them move up to their second floor defense next. The Clash works pretty much brilliantly, does exactly what they expect it to do, builds on top of already the great utility mitigation they had coming in the last round, and stops that angle from cutting off the rest of the defenders into the site, gives them the clarity they need to focus fully on denying those laundry backstairs and E-hatch drops, excuse me, to be able to cleanly close out on that round for Liquid.
Liquid have done something that BDS were not able to do. But they've done something that every defending team should be able to do here on Oregon. And at least we can now say that we have a round on the basement for the defenders. For BDS's sake, this is not looking too great. They need to start picking up some rounds, and they need to start picking them up quickly. I'm surprised we haven't seen a timeout yet. I feel like coming into round number 9, it probably would have been a good time for BDS to have a little bit of a conversation and a think about how they're choosing to approach things, because this one-trick Alems crouch walking into sight, it's worked once, and then it hasn't worked. How many times can you use that same party trick in the same game?
It's definitely going to end up being a bit of an over-reliance on a bit of a gimmick, as we saw it used in the first round quite successfully, but as you noted, they had Overwatch with 2 different players established against it there. Had the one at Pillars gone down, there was another player on the site that could have easily shut that down as well, so they were more than ready for it on the second go-around. BDS needs to be more innovative than that if they want to find success on these repeated sites. Could, on the pause mark, just be waiting to see how this second site plays out as well before they potentially go for that, but obviously, if we see Liquid close this one down, the pause, in my opinion, is going to come in too late, as Liquid will already be at 6 rounds, and then BDS are going to need to look at a full rotation perfectly, as they'll need to pick up 3 in a row just to be able to send it to overtime.
Shaiko getting droned in here to bedroom, catches out a little bit of utility, as does the shock drone at his feet. Alems looking to make his crouch walk play through. We do have Ask inside of meeting, so could be looking to make some sort of a rotation, although he needs to be mindful he doesn't get pinched here. Alems could be chasing shadows there in the basement, as we can see that there are no Liquid defenders in there. And instead, they're just going to use this time to gather a little bit more info. Bride waiting to try and get this exothermic charge off, but it's most likely going to get traded off. This is something that Liquid did a lot yesterday against SSG. They were very consistent on that impact trick.
Can't immediately throw it on the second one either. They're actually going to double stack the Kiba barricades. Lems continuing to be dirty as ever. Then waltzes right into the back of meeting room and is going to find Ask. I'm pretty sure with his phone out as well, so pops his head right off. Early kill for BDS, but now will they continue to build upon this? They are having trouble getting open that walk-in hatch, which once again is a core part of the execution strategy here. So will they continue to try and play into that, or are they going to back up and look for other options, especially now they've got the sentry towards meeting, opening up the back end a little bit more cleanly for themselves?
Bomb located by
the amount of space that Alems is finding here for his team is incredible. Looking now to get a little bit of a depth charge from below, and that will be successful. Picks himself up a second as he's just getting fed here. The wall can now be opened as the threat of impact tricking has gone, but PSK, how long can you survive? 1 versus 5, a flawless for BDS.
Absolutely beautiful from Alems as the hero in pretty much every single aspect of that round. Opens up the execute route with that depth charge from below, and then the 2 kills on top of it, of course, to make it 3 on the round overall. But it was that nade kill that left the room of opportunity open for the rest of his squad to thrust themselves directly into the site without any further delay, especially with the 5v2 it had already put down to at that point. Shaiko, as we see here, one more player able to clean that up quite nicely to put another round on the board for BDS, putting them only 1 round behind Team Liquid here at 5-4.
Much needed round for BDS. If they're able to level things up now, things could start to get very competitive indeed. We do go to a tertiary site. Liquid not wanting to mess around on that Kidstorm defense any longer, and instead are going to switch things up and take us down into meeting. I think it's probably a good play because they didn't really hold on too well there, and BDS had a lot of problem-solving capability in that last round. Someone that you've got to look to try and shut down early, though, is going to be Alems. You need to try and get some sort of a handle on that. Liquid aren't really bringing anything too specific just because of how wide he's entering in onto the map. There's a lot of places you can just sneak in for free. You can't defend everything. but I think it's something that Liquid needs to be a lot more mindful of moving forward, because that little solo play that Alems is pulling off is really starting to hurt.
It is leading to a bit of a top-heavy factor for BDS as well. You can see this Alems obviously leading at 12-7. The next highest teammate, at least in terms of fragging capability, is Rafal, sitting down at 6-6. And it continues to go further down from that as we look at the rest of the team as well. So the team really almost relying on Alems to some extent to be able to pick up these opening kills, and as we saw in the last round, open up pathways for the team to actually get into the site. If he goes down early on, that's going to cause a massive delay and will more than likely be a much easier time for Liquid to close out the rest of the elements inside of that round.
Liquid are going to be spreading themselves fairly thinly here. We've got a presence on that top floor. Nesk's just going to drop himself down. Opted to play the Warden this time, feeling that the threat of the flash grenades is going to be substantial enough to warrant it. And of course, the potential for the smokes as well, although none have been brought. Oh, sorry, 2 have been brought here by Renshiro on the Ossa, so could really come in to be quite a pick that. Looks as though we're going to start to get this back wall open, however. BDS is just going to give himself a little bit of an option to dip out there if the going gets a little bit too tough, and with Alems playing below, you can be rest assured that there's no Nitro Cell going to hop up through that hatch.
We've got BDS starting to put pressure into this. At the same time, you can see Ask over here looking to try and resist it. He's not going to be able to shoot at that Rotero drone. That sends him back behind one of his Keepa barricades, but also directly on top of a nade as well. Won't fully knock him out, though, and he does have a little bit of cover to play. He's going to try to back up into the kitchen, though, where the res will be a lot less risky, but still, Renshiro picking up yet another kill, and there's the confirmation via Rotero drone as well onto Ask. That takes him out of the play entirely. Renshiro gets a second pickup here, finally putting some numbers on the board for him as well, as BDS are thrusting through this defensive lineup from Liquid without too much of an issue. PSK and Palu, the only two left. Palu finally with the counter for Alems, but it's not really going to matter here. BDS immediately picks up the trade. The plant will go down. An attempt from PSK to get into the Lion's Nest there, but it won't work out. And we see BDS find another round that'll tie us up at 5-all.
The best thing about that round is that the actual execute of opening the wall and really starting to put pressure on Meetin didn't have a lot to do with Alems. Alems was below and he was making sure it was clear, so he was a part of it, but he wasn't there sneaking in, getting kills. It wasn't that reliance on that solo play. He was able to grab one, but ultimately that was a very small part in what was a much bigger round and a much more team play oriented round from BDS. Now they've managed to gain level, and that's huge considering the first split that they had here being so unsuccessful on their defensive half. The question is, can they continue from here on out? Looks as though we're hitting a little bit of a timeout for BDS, so they have waited until drawing level here to use that tactical timeout.
Is going to help out Team Liquid quite a bit now too, as have run into some issues, but at the same time have been able to exercise their strength on both of the other sites they'd like to play into as well. So they've seen the full breadth of their strategy, shown it as well to the out-of-game leadership sitting behind them, and now is going to leave the room open for all the input on all 3 sites so they can hopefully course correct on the second go-around here as they try to close out on at least 2 of these remaining rounds. Will have to be a perfect streak for either team, though, if they want to close it down in regulation at this point. Otherwise, if we go 1-1, obviously that'll take us into overtime here. So Liquid, the pressure is certainly on. Had that booming start from the attacking side, but it seems BDS has quite a bit of fuel in the tank for their own attack. That's going to make this matchup a lot more competitive than it may have first appeared at the end of the first half.
Let's see how Liquid choose to approach this one then. They're going to opt for the clash again. It is something that worked for them back in round number 7. Round number 8, I think, actually. So the clash is going to be brought out there again by PSK, and they're going to go for the 2 catches. They're going to go for the Wamai and they're going to go for the Jaeger. There's no reason not to. The magnets have been so good from Liquid. I don't think we've seen many nades, if any, really get in and get through that initial defensive utility that Liquid are placing out there. And obviously for BDS, that's something to be more mindful of moving forward. But they're going to be coming out with some choice picks of their own. Rafal's actually locked in the Kali.
Should be interesting to see. Obviously, we don't see Kali played it too often. It is occasionally brought in as kind of a desperate attempt to replace a Thatcher, especially with the sight lines that'll be played out here inside of the basement. Not necessarily going to get a whole lot of use out of that sniper rifle due to just how slow it can be to utilize, but she's got a pretty decent secondary SMG to play into as well, so not going to be completely out of her element. Obviously, we're going to be bringing her in to use those thumpers, though, to try and knock out utility sitting on the other side of the wall and allow for them to have better sight lines going into this site. Hopefully being able to avoid the problem of the clash. To start it out though, I'm dead wrong about the snipers. They get a winning angle against Ass, get the leg shot against him, and he goes right down into the grave here. Should still be able to be revived potentially, but that's going to rely on some of the other members of Liquid not being preoccupied here. PSK getting the stun off, holding the Finka back, but quickly losing control over this construction side hall as well. Liquid are going to need to be careful as we are quickly seeing BDS gain more and more ground, and it's too much of a distraction as Lem is allowed to insert himself on the back stairs. No one is watching it. That's going to be Pandora's box opened up, but hold on now, Liquid, they're fighting back. Nesk with 3 out of nowhere. Alems is going to have to fight for his life here as he's the only one remaining. And Liquid once again shut out a defensive round here in the basement. Great correction from Nesk and the rest of Liquid to bring it back, as things were looking a bit dodgy on that construction push.
Nesk has just slammed a door in BDS's face right there. He has gone, you might have all these fancy Flores drones and this fancy sniper rifle that you've been able to down my teammate with. But guess what? I'm still here and I am still fighting. A little quick rush strategy is not going to work against us here today. Liquid, they get put onto a map point here in our first map of this best of 3.
We said before, that needs to be a consecutive run for Liquid, and the good news is they have started that sequence of unlocking the sites they've already won, meaning that they'll now be able to return to the upstairs holder. Actually, I think that might still be... It's kind of interesting here, as I recall correctly now, and that was actually picked up by BDS, was never locked away in the first place.
I'm not sure why they're going here.
Yeah, I'm a little bit confused by this decision too. You heard me.
They've got a clear idea of what they want to do differently. I mean, I guess the wall got open last time and it was very straightforward. Even BDS shot, look, they're making changes. They're like, guys, panic. We need to abort the top floor plan. These crazy guys have gone to meeting.
So BDS is going to be thrown off by this one a little bit. That may be part of the plan for Liquid here, subvert the expectations slightly. Obviously, attacker repick is going to get in the way of messing up their operator selections. Still, we've seen the expected picks come through here. The OSI shield specifically going to be hugely crucial for ensuring the rest of BDS to establish positioning further into meeting room. Once they are able to get that back wall open, we still don't have any active resistance coming in onto that wall either from Liquid, so not going to be easy for them to potentially stem the tide of the execute happening in the same exact way that it did just a few rounds back.
Bride was obviously a big part of the previous attack onto here and getting that wall open and really focusing on getting that plant down. There was a good little bit of nade play as well, in and amongst the Flores Rotero drones. File doing a great job to reposition defenders that were still hanging around inside of meeting. Aside from that, Liquid weren't really too close to this round. They had that little bit of an extension. We're going to have a little bit more here. Shaiko already getting himself into the action. Shuts Nest down, picks himself up a second as Ask is going to be the next to fall. That's the wall now going to be open. Resets, grabs one back. It may be a little bit too late though, as the breach already has been open. Palu forced to now start taking some really extended gunfights here. He's only got the MX4 Storm to deal with. BDS have that advantage.
Just giving over way too much to Shaiko there, but still BDS not necessarily with the confidence to play it forward just yet. Shaiko himself is still going to be a little bit low. Should still have 2, I'm assuming, Adrenal Surges ready to go, though, once he gets himself off drones. Indeed, he'll be able to bring his HP back up to around 75%, assuming he delays it all the way to the point where he can use that second surge, but you see the execute boil through at some point, too. Gets a little bit panicked about someone flanking down the long haul, so he's going to chuck out both of his nades to stem the tide on that. And I believe because of his low HP, he's just going to be left to establish Overwatch here, while the rest of the team worries about pushing back in. Lems waiting for an opportunity. We saw him go for this back flank last time as well, but you can see Resets already in position to counter this and not being too adventurous about it either. Palu very much looking towards the same thing here, so Lems is going to have a tough task making his own impact. The good news, though, is that this distraction of a Lems on the back end is leaving the site itself quite vulnerable. Save for the one player in Kitchen, we could see a pretty clean push be made right now by the members of BDS, but they are going to want to use their Rotero drones to get a little bit of extra intel as well as clear out the utility. What a dash in there from Palu, though. Picks up the one. Resets, tries to contend against Alems, but he can't land the shot, and Palu is lost as the peek comes through. The nade against Resets will also down him. PSK trades out for one, but he hasn't been able to deny this plant. Only has taken down the player moving in from the front end. Needs to try and get the planter here and now, otherwise it's going to be such a tough retake. Won't pull it off, though. Bride escapes. Rafal's also worked himself up to the top of the stairs, and in a moment, we'll have access to that hatch here, so it's a rough one for PSK, but if they want to end the game, he's got to clutch this one out here and now. has access to that diffuser, can try and bait out some of the presence by tapping it real quick, but he's focused too much on the fragging. Goes right out into a flash. Plenty of time, still repositions, just guessing as to where these players could be right now as he's lost the plot entirely. Trying to lock one of them down, but just can't get it done. Maybe able to get the first, and there we go. There's the pickup, but he only has 3 seconds to get onto the case and stick it here. Will be going for it, but I'm pretty sure he got onto it too late, and he's still up. Brede moving in to shut things down. BDS will trigger overtime.
Great round from BDS. They did exactly the same attack as we saw previously, and it worked in exactly the same manner, albeit a lot closer that round than previous, but a round is still a round regardless of how close it is. Alems is doing such a good job of distracting so much attention. Paolo and Resets, they knew that he was going to be pushing. They knew exactly that he was going to be pushing through that side. Now, Paolo assumed main door, and quite rightly so. It's one of the first angles you can check. Don't think they were anticipating the garage. Obviously, that's what Resets was there for. And I think Resets just missed a couple of shots. A little bit unfortunate there. But had that kill come through a lot earlier, it would have been very easy then for Liquid to reinforce the site and throw a few more bodies at the problem. Now, they have been given defense first on the overtime, and they are going to go downstairs. But statistically, Blue, this isn't a fantastic site for the defenders, but I'm sure that Liquid are relaxed enough knowing that they can get the job done down here.
Liquid do at least have a winning record on this one, with 2 winning attempts and 1 losing attempt so far, and this has been mainly off of the back of the clash that unfortunately the members of BDS have not really been able to successfully deal with just as of yet. Something like a Zofia may be able to help out, but the problem is, again, the utility from Liquid with regard to their nade mitigation, specifically from Ness Wamai, has just been way too strong here, so I don't think they want to take a risk on that, potentially leave some of those getting eaten up. So BDS will still stick with generally the same lineup as before. Going to see 6 nades coming in this time, so they lower that amount just a tad. But overall, it is going to bring the expected roster needed to try and assault this site. Still will need to find a way to get past PSK, though, as that has been the thorn in their side for both of the losing basement attacks so far.
It's kind of strange because usually you'd really want to get defense on Oregon in an overtime, but BDS is probably quite happy on the attack. They've performed much better on the attack so far today. So they're probably feeling that they got a pretty good deal out of this all as well. Of course, it all remains to be seen as to how they choose to play their hand. Alems isn't going to be on the Nook this time. He's instead going to be on the Iana, so you're looking for a little bit more utility. Still bring the 2 nades, but you do bring those Gemini clones that you can use to gather a little bit more information at some points inside the round. And in some cases used to burn up some laser gates, but we don't have any of those here for the defense on Liquid. They are instead sticking to what has worked previously, and that has been the catchers, namely the magnets from Wamai. They've done a fantastic job of eating up a lot of this utility that BDS throw on in, and of course they have the clash as well.
Quite across the map as BDS look for the appropriate path to move forward. PSK almost gets caught on the timing here. He moves himself a little bit deeper into Freezer to avoid getting picked off the back end of the hatch. Chiro has completed clearing out the 2nd floor, and I believe the rest of the team has already scouted things out for the main floor. So you can begin focusing up on the descent, but again, that brings up the glaring issue that we already talked about towards the beginning of this round. How do they get past the clash? How do they properly leverage their utility to push themselves into Freezer, as this is held strong at least 2 times in a row, once being positioned here in the same exact spot in Freezer, and once having adjusted it over towards the construction push as well. Changing up the strat is not necessarily going to be the winning formula here for BDS. They have to try and find a way to get past it. So far, they're going to be able to knock out the smoke, which will certainly help out in their time game a bit, removes those toxic babes from the delay. See now how the rest of the team can try to move forward further into E, as this is also going to draw the attention of PSK finally away from that Freezer area.
PSK getting spread a little bit thin here. He feels like he needs to be in the freezer and on blue at the same time. Ness just going to be holding on to those back stairs. But there has been a drop in through the hatch. It doesn't matter. He's going to get taken out from the back stairs as Paolo looks to try and stabilize. Misses his shots. Rafal there to take him out. Shaiko Alems flawless. BDS storm through the basement.
It's going to be a big win coming in from BDS. They're even better, too, constantly getting the better of Liquid's aggression inside of that final team fight, catching them pushing out on at least 2 to 3 different avenues. And unfortunately, BDS, or rather Liquid in some respects, just getting distracted, as we saw at least for one player there hiding on the outside of the electrical wall, gets tripped up by those X-Kairos that were thrown onto the wall. And as that was happening, a player from the backstairs pushed down, took him down. We saw a few other examples of things similar to that happening. This led to a quick elimination of that defensive roster, allowing for BDS to take charge here, moving them up 7-6. One more round away now from being able to close out on map number 1.
Where do they go is the question. Where do they take us? They do.
They
take us downstairs.
No way. Why would you not go for the second floor hold?
I'm pretty gobsmacked at this from BDS. They haven't won downstairs once today on defense. And they think overtime match point, yeah, it's as good a time as any.
And I'm not crazy. They won both of their upstairs defenses.
Yeah, they won dorms like clean.
Well, clearly BDS has something in the making for the strategy to try and win this one out. Otherwise could have gone for the safe pick upstairs, like we said before, winning both of those inside of regulation, and at least one of them in pretty convincing fashion too, but not feeling it for overtime. They think they've made the adjustments here in the basement, so let's see if that's going to be the case or if the attackers will continue to surge in win rate here on this site.
Team Liquid don't know the look at the minute. They're like, are you sure? Like, do I need to check with my drone as well?
Do we need to rehost this? You sure you guys didn't misclick or something?
Yeah, like PSK, are you absolutely sure that that was the site? PSK's like, yeah, I told you, like, they've gone downstairs. Yeah, I promise. Maybe BDS just defaulted. They're just like, yep, basement. We'll have to see. They may have a little bit of a strategy. They may have something, a bit of a point to prove potentially that they want to try and do something slightly different. Or they're just realizing that Liquid can't rely on winning that execute every single time. It's a very finely tuned thing, the way that Liquid have been attacking. They've been pushing through freezer, laundry, bunker, backstairs. There's been at least 3 of those areas all involved in the push at every single one. So if one of those doesn't work, if one of those fails, it weakens the entire execute. And maybe BDS are looking to try and take advantage of that.
Slow work either way. Both teams have had their fill of aggression here for these basement holds and have realized that it's not really going to lead to a whole lot. That's all cooled off as of a few rounds back in regulation here, just leading into that standard bunker setup really for both teams. Obviously Liquid having a bit of a variation by bringing the Clash into it, but BDS is going to give us the usual suspects to hold downstairs and hold for pretty much the entire round. Liquid, of course, now realizing this, begin to open up the hatch play and will start to scout things out with their own drone work to look for the appropriate way to try and wriggle themselves into this setup and hopefully be able to take yet another attacking victory down here.
Palu gathering a lot of important info on the drone. Shaiko playing his spot. Does have a couple of these cameras out there, and that one has a nice line of sight into meeting. You can get a couple of glimpses there if you place it just inside the rim of the hatch. Resets. Looking like he's going to be pushing down these main stairs. He knows he's got quite a bit of utility to burn on through, and he's going to deploy the Gon 6 first. A little bit of a drone to back that up as Palu throws his utility into Freezer as well. With that wall open, it's not going to be so straightforward to just walk on down Freezer, especially when Rafale is there ready to peek. But under the cover of the flashes, they can get the job done. BDS draws first blood, as Rafale's going to be down next, and kills do trade, but BDS are coming up on top. Ask, you've got a lot of work to do here, my friend, as he draws for the bearing, cannot find the next. Alems, the man of the match, has closed things out there for BDS.
BDS proving even us wrong on that final round there, showing us that they can finally close out on one of those basement defenses. The winning strategy apparently is just go out and fight the members of Team Liquid in the halls. Beautifully done either way by BDS as they're able to take control. A great comeback too, considering they started down 2-4 after their initial defensive half had closed out. They're able to take both rounds in overtime here. Don't even need the third one to close it out, and they'll take control of the first map. That'll do it for us here at the casting desk for now. Let's head back down to your analyst to break this game down and get us ready for map number 2.
Thank you very much, friends. Yes, we are back, and BDS are victorious. It got tight, it got close, and Team Liquid almost had it there, but our EU team will grab Oregon Liquid's map pick Twister.
Liquid started really well on attack. They just put their pressure, tried some different executions, like going on Laundry, going on Freezer, both of the time, and they just didn't care about the Vulcan Shaiko. But after that, when they went to the defense, it was missing something.
I think what we saw is we saw two teams that are just super comfortable with playing default siege, especially attacking onto that laundry supply basement bomb site. I know we saw the casters say why if BDS gone down there, just about defending it out in the end. And that's what I wanted to say is kind of when you've got two teams that are stylistically very similar, you know, their ideas, they played it very default in terms of that map. It's basically about who turns up better inside of the server, and that's why I said I wasn't surprised that we went to overtime, and we did.
Well, let's bring you up some highlights brought to you by Aramco, one of our many sponsors here at Gamers8 in Riyadh. And if anything, watching this matchup between, as you both described in the pre-game, two highly structured team, it really got slow at times, but I guess it went slow for a reason, for many reasons, because both teams were scouting one another and getting into these small positions, power positions, to help them once plans are executed.
This was a very common and default Oregon played by both of them, as Jack said.
Yeah.
But it was not usual because we didn't see Nask or Shaco just fragging out like they did on every game during this tournament. So it came from LMs to just bring this attention and do that hard flank positions and bot BDS some of the important rounds that they won.
I think LMs has actually been given a lot more freedom on the role, or on his role in BDS now. We're seeing him play, you know, he used to be the IGL of this team. We're seeing him play a lot more lurking and, you know, playing off, backstabbing those late flanks that were coming out, particularly on the attack. And it paid off massively today, you know, he top fragged for his team. And I think ultimately, probably just about that was the difference.
Who doesn't like late round Nook flanks, where the Nook's just hiding somewhere in a good position, you got nades in the kit, you're hiding away for all cameras, and you're making as little noise as possible. LMs has really perfected the role of lurking in this game, and probably, like Jacques was saying, pushed BDS over the line against Liquid.
When you have this experienced player like LMs and you use it to create some chaos into the other things, strats, it's very useful because you cannot just execute and just wait that Liquid will not counter it, because they know how to play the default siege, they know how to counter the entrance in the bomb site, they know how to counter the clean of the resources. So you have to this surprise element from BDS, and with that experience, they were able to do this.
How did Liquid just not able to how were they not able to close the game? They had it all in the bag.
I think both teams suffered from the same problem on their defenses, which was probably that they were a little bit slow. They were a little bit passive, and they allowed the team that was on the attack so much time, so much map control to set up an actual execute. We saw it a few times with BDS, particularly on the basement, and we saw it with Liquid's defenses as well, where, you know, BDS, they had all the time in the world in every single round, even in that very last round there, to actually set up their execute and then execute it. It's not often in Siege, and especially in today's meta, that you see defenses actually allow attacks map control, allow, you know, we saw quite a few 5v5 executes. That's not very common in today's meta.
Besides the pretty common match, we saw both of the teams trying to play some different operators, just like Liquid playing Clash or Shaco playing in his Valk, but none of these operators were able to secure their teams on defense. So we saw a pretty aggressive and structured attack style, and both of the teams being able to just go into the bomb site even slow and just got the important kills that they needed to have a pretty clean setups to plant the bomb site and just win in the after plants.
So taking it slow, droning out, getting into flank positions, post-plant positions, and for both of these teams that are highly experienced, a lot of just knowing how the flow of a round usually goes. There's not many things that can equal experience when it and that, how do you call it, the game knowledge, the map knowledge is oh so important here.
Yeah, and that's it, and that's ultimately with these two teams, that's why we saw such a even game, right? That's why we saw it go to overtime. It could have gone all the way to 15 rounds as well. And I'm looking forward, I hope we go all the way to map 3, Milosh.
You think we'll have a map 3, Twister?
For sure, I hope so.
Very excited then to see it. EU versus Latam Classic, Shaco versus Nesk on the other side. Gentlemen, thank you very much. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back to break things down for map 2 and get you in the game. See you in a moment. friends to the desk as we set ourselves up for map number 2 and our first series out of 2 for today. It's all best of 3 here, and it's BDS versus Team Liquid. BDS able to come back on map 1, Oregon, and take it in overtime, 8-6. So very happy for you to join us here. Europe continues on its good run, but don't you worry about it. Liquid have something up their sleeves, and we're expecting a map 3 for the series. Let's guide you through that second map. I'm Alistair Medic, your host. With me are Twister and Fresh. Gentlemen, we've had a great map 1, but it's time to talk about our second one. And let's put up that map, Vito. Just a moment to refresh people's minds about how things have gone down. First up, Liquid. That was their pick on Oregon. They lost their pick, unfortunately, and now we go to Bank. BDS's home here, at least in their pick. Twister, how do you feel this going?
As Fresh mentioned it before, we got Oregon picked by Liquid and Bank picked by the BDS because they chose to play the maps that the other team doesn't feel comfortable on. So when they had the chance, they tried to pick on it. So I would say that this Bank will be a Bank that we may see a lot of different kind of plays by BDS, just like fast pushes in the open area, big entrance with all the executions on the server, and things like that.
And that's the thing, is that we said in Oregon it was a very default against default game. We saw from BDS the last time that BDS played Bank was against Rogue in EUL. And in that game they were doing some strange stuff, to put it bluntly. We saw Shaiko playing Osa. We saw, different people on different roles, with BDS having a really experimental Bank. Now, they were 6-2 down in that game, and they brought it all the way back to overtime. They did lose it out in the end, so they've got a bit of substance about it, and they've picked into Liquid's lowest map preference. Now, I've just had a quick look at Liquid on Bank. They've not played it. They've played it a couple of times in BR6 Stage 2, lost it once, and then won it once against NIP. So, they're okay at it, even if it is a low map preference. I say it's their ninth preference, but they do play all 9 maps within BR6.
Final thoughts, we're almost ready to go. Liquid starting on the attack side of Bank. Do you think we'll see a map 3, Twister?
I would like to, but I don't feel like Liquid is very, very comfortable on this map. When you are a team that pretty much have the 9 maps, you have the map preference. So I would say that on this map specifically, we will need to see them shine in the defense.
Map 3, yes, no, no more.
No.
All right, there you go. It might just end. We got disagreements. Well, let's pull up our casters. Gentlemen, please, hey, it's Blue and X. Please take us through Bank.
Thank you very much, Milos. It is indeed time to head into Bank, a map that neither of these teams have yet to play at this tournament as of yet. We'll have to wait and see which one will fare better. As we heard the analysis desk say, things historically don't look that great for Liquid going on to this one, but they'll certainly have to prep themselves, as if not, they'll be knocked out of the tournament here. BDS is looking for the killing blow in a 2-0 fashion. We'll have to wait and see if they'll be able to get it. X, is it going to happen here, or do you think he'll end up on map number 3?
See, part of me has to say map number 3 because I've got to be a Liquid fan, right? But then I'm also from Europe, so another part of me goes, I'd like to see BDS do it. But we all know what happens when someone says words to the effect of and BDS takes it. So we really could be looking at something quite unpredictable here. Not just in the fact that we don't have loads of data on both of these, on Liquid for this map. Liquid are more than capable of hiding a map and just bringing it out every now and then. So you never really know what you're going to be going up against, and especially when you throw down something like Bank, which on its best day can be very unpredictable. It's such a big map. The biggest thing for me that I would be concerned about if I was Liquid right now would be the way that BDS have been playing, the way that Alem's found space on Oregon, which is a smaller map. He's going to be a nightmare to keep a track of here.
Absolutely the case, and even worse, BDS start out on defense too, so they're going to be dealing with that right from the very beginning. Even on the attacking side, would not be surprised if we see that Nook make constant reappearances for him, as you can certainly work it on Bank, and obviously not going to be banned out here. The ban's actually a direct mirror so far, and literally going to be a direct mirror of our first map. So same exact bans as we saw before. It seems like both our teams were happy with the state of play. I hope back on Oregon.
I like what you did there. I appreciated that. Liquid kicking things off then on the attack. It looks as though we're going to be going down to lockers to start things off here for BDS. With those bans, it gives a lot of flexibility as well. You've got so much available. We've let the Valkyrie through again. Now, I know that we saw Liquid use the Valkyrie quite a bit, and they got their own value out of it. But again, a map like Bank, such a good map for Valkyrie. You give Shaiko that space, and especially if you're going to have a Lems out there causing a bit of a nuisance, it could be a bit of a recipe for disaster. At least with what BDS are bringing right now, it doesn't speak to an incredibly roam-heavy lineup. Lems is going to be on the Azami, so whilst he might get out there and be active in the start of the round, he probably wants to get himself back safe so he can deploy some of those Kiba barriers. But couple that up with the castle, and you're setting up a pretty solid defense here.
Away from that, is important to note now what is on the line in this map for BDS, but for both teams overall in this series. If they are able to win this one, that'll send them onwards to the grand finals. They already have guaranteed 3rd and 4th place prizing at $155,000. But if they win for BDS just this last map, they will upgrade that by another $95,000, all the way up to a guaranteed 2nd place, which will take home $250K. So certainly a lot to be playing for. And important to note, too, for players that are still sitting near a top 5 or so of the top kills in this tournament and overall are worthy of an MVP award, there's that to play for as well. 25K for the most kills and 100K to the individual that gets the MVP award at this tournament.
There's a lot of loot on the line, and we have seen it influence the way that players have played. We have seen people going a little bit more frag hungry, and as we open things off here, it is no different. Lems, what did I say? Cause a bit of damage in the early part of the round, get himself back to site. He's already done it. We've only seen 45 seconds.
Hasn't even really needed to use the Kiba barricades to be able to pick it up either. He's stacking 4 of them in his inventory right now. Finally going to be able to start to use some of those, but still. Speaks of the prowess of a Lems here that he doesn't even necessarily need to rely on that utility to get the job done. Going to patch one of the holes that were breached there as well to make things a bit more difficult for Liquid. Liquid, in the meanwhile, are going to try and make use of the Nook. It's not going to be the quiet Nook, though, as you see that can opener going down on the castle barricade to allow it to move a little bit further forward towards the main stairs here. Ranchero as well. They get stunned out, so he'll be forced back, but there's other players still wanting to play aggressively over by that main staircase, in part to try and attempt to support Shaiko's position, which is still alive and well over here in Staff.
With Nesk falling as well, and with Nook bringing the secondary heart breach gadget, that's all your nade's got. You haven't got any ability now to nade out players on the site. C4 gets sent out there, it will be shot out mid-air. The Shaiko is finished off. Palu credited with the down, Ask finishing it all off. Skeleton key can now be used to make some quick lines of sight and quick rotations here. Got to question why the sledge wasn't brought really for Palu. They've got enough burn, they've got enough flashes, but I really think they could do with another couple of nades here for this execute. There's going to be utility to burn through. We're pinging out things like Banshees, we're pinging out other little bits and bobs. We've got the Kiba barriers as well. Fortunately, we do still have the lifeline of resets available on that Zephyr, so they're going to now start to look to open up this breach.
Use the X-Kairos there to quickly pop things open. Resets ready to move in as well. Going to start to use some of these lifeline charges to open up the soft breach deeper into the site. Lems trying to block off hatch access here with those Kiba barricades. Looks to get both on either side. It'll work out, but mind you, PSK, these are very easy to take down. Just stand on top of them. They should deteriorate immediately. For Ass, though, having to dodge around the Toxic Bait, barely survives it. One more tick and he goes down, but it'll come from a bullet instead of a gas grenade. Rafal knocks him out. Bride with another one as the aggression starting to roll out, and yes, you do deteriorate those by standing on them, but it's a bit of a slow process, so Lems, he'll get plenty of a warning before the drop actually comes through. Palu with so far 1 exchange, but he's quickly running out of time. Not realistic for him to get back into this site. Just trying to play to pad the stats a bit, and it won't happen. Lems shuts down one more, and it's BDS to strike first here on Bank.
Liquid looked in really good shape there to start burning out utility. I was surprised to see Ask just hightail it straight into the site. The Toxic Babe came out, and I was expecting him to go, okay, this is the time where we just dip back into server. And we chill in server for 25 seconds, then we go in again, and then we bait out some more utility, and so the cycle continues. But oh no, that did not happen at all. He instead said, you know what, I feel like I need to push all the way in here, and BDS had the heads up. No pressure either inside of Garage, and you can only think that with only 4 going into that final execute, having lost Nesk early on, that Liquid were really running on a bit of a plan B there for that attack.
So Liquid continue to look for ways to get themselves on the board. Obviously only the first round drops, so still plenty of opportunities to do so. BDS going to bring the castle now for a second time on the defense, wanting to try and trick up the rotations a little bit here, especially considering that Liquid did not have a whole lot of soft breach coming into that last round. Well, yeah, Palu's going to go onto the Buck. Mind you, the Buck can't actually take those down, so it's not going to be of any use in that respect. Nades will certainly try and help that out a little bit, but still going to be relying mainly on those lifeline charges to be able to get rid of those should they run into problems. And of course, PSK can once again deal with it via the secondary hard breach utility he's going to have in the can openers there too.
Alem's back onto that flexible pick of the Oryx. He was active enough on the Azami. You can only think how much of a nightmare he's going to be on Oryx on this map. Plenty of hatches for him to hop up as well. Opportunities to use the burst of speed to make slightly quicker rotations. Liquid need to sharpen up on that opening drone game. We've seen them sloppy a couple of times in the series, a couple of times on Oregon and inside of that last round on that opening drone. And it has caused Nesk to fall twice so far, so they need to really dial that in a little bit just so that they're not making very careless mistakes like that. And as such, we are seeing them spend quite a bit of time checking things out in this round. Top floor there going to be called as clear. Bit of utility spotted out inside of main lobby as well. I don't imagine that Valkyrie camera will be long for this world, as it looks as though Nesk is just waiting for the cue to call to hop himself into newspapers.
Resets still looking for his own way to try and move forward here, as will the rest of Liquid. Slow progress so far being made by them, but it is still progress nonetheless. He continues to wait for a potential peek to come out from the inside of Tellers. BDS not really wanting to flirt with that at this point in the round, though. They sit nice and steady, tucked away deeper towards the side, and of course, with Alem's exposed elevator position as well. Liquid are not actually going to be able to catch on to the elevator spot too early on here either, so he will potentially be free to make a play at some point later on in the round, but it'll be important to note that he's on the closer to the site elevator, not the further one that has a direct line of sight to areas like Spiral Stairs. Now we can see Resets and the rest of Liquid starting to establish some of these top downs. As we mentioned before, no sledge. They are going to be able to open these up mainly via breaching charges here. That will give them a somewhat limited window to see downstairs.
Nesk priming himself to open up the castle barricade into sight and just being ready for anything that should peek out of the back of it. There's going to be vertical happening above him as well, which is going to help assist move these defenders and relocate them. With the hatch open behind him, though, he does need to be cautious. We've already seen Alems is more than willing to use Oryx's ability to hop through a hatch, and he's probably just waiting for the right time to strike. When there's enough commotion going on elsewhere, he feels though he's going to get away with it. Still patiently waiting below. We see Parley now starting to rip open the floor with that skeleton key. More breaching happening upstairs as well. Liquid really milking this timer now. 25 seconds left. Alems looks as though he's thought better of the hatch hop up, as PSK is going to be watching back there for Ness, just making sure that no one's going to be there for the flank. But the first kill is going to come in from Shaiko, as Resets is going to be shut down. You see him desperately flicking through cameras there as kills start to fly. But look at Nesk making that LMG sing. Liquid do have an advantage here, and PSK finds Renshi under the desk. They're going to get the plan down with 1 second left. Shaiko runs out of ammo and gets swung by Palu.
See Liquid there, able to save the day with the entry coming in from PSK. Obviously the members of BDS wanting to try and play that out on the timer in those dying seconds, but the loss of their second to last player just not going to be able to maintain positioning. Liquid certainly having to reach to get those kills going, as they were struggling to find ways which they could take down members of BDS earlier on in the round, but they make it happen in the execute. They're able to correct quite quickly now to take control of that open area site and lock in the scoreline at 1-1.
I think Liquid will be really happy with the way that they played that. They didn't overcommit and they consciously were there for that flank. And Alems felt that pressure. We saw that with the way that he rotated up blue instead of looking to make a flashy hatch play. We had PSK there with that backwatch. And Nesk was then allowed to just move on through like the Terminator that he often is and pick himself up a couple of nice, easy kills. Nice kill onto Renshiro as well, underneath the desk. It wasn't necessarily something that would be that easy for PSK to get called out to him. The information exchange at that point in the round when there's so little time left, never an easy thing at all, but still a kill that was achieved regardless. We now move things up as BDS decide, you know what, we're going to give it another go down there instead.
Attacker's objective is to defuse a bomb.
The round goes live, and the opportunity for Liquid to take the lead comes with it. We'll have to see now how they try to move themselves forward, as it is going to be that same execute needed to win this one out again. BDS have gone for the same site downstairs here in open area, and a lot of the same elements to their play as well, including the castle barricade showing up for the third consecutive time now to try and block out these access points for Liquid. Liquid still a little bit of lack for utility to deal with some of that, but thankfully, once again, as we saw in the last round, it didn't end up being too much of an obstacle ultimately by the end of the round. So I doubt they're too worried about it now, seeing that they have to deal with it again. The team will start to move in, but it'll be that slow crawl that we saw back on round number 2. Liquid does not want to overstep themselves here and lose players, especially to ones on BDS like Alems, who has been going crazy here with the roam game over the past 2 rounds, finding a lot of success from it so far. A little bit hit or miss as Liquid has prioritized locking this down and has done a great job of doing it. Resets, there we go, finding Alems. Unfortunately, not going to allow him to contribute in this round with that early kill.
Liquid have really tightened themselves up, especially after that first round. They've gone, you know what, we are not falling for this again. You might have fooled us in the first, but they have been successful in the third. And in the second, it was a very healthy execute that was being displayed on both sides. The entry kill wasn't really a factor. Liquid just slowly took that ground. They're doing the same here, but with the advantage of a man count. PSK going to be crouch walking his way through. Obviously, with the Valkyrie in play, it kind of nullifies a little bit of that as well. If you're going to be in the silent step, it's much more difficult to see the Nook inside of her ability whenever they are crouching or walking through any sort of cameraed area. Nesk now can start to open up a bit of a line of sight in onto Archives. Resets at the top of those main stairs. The floor now starts to get open. So we've got attackers, sorry, for Liquid ready to catch some of these rotating players as they look to make their way either back to site or just for a slight reposition as Palu starts to rip open a lot of this soft.
A bomb has been located.
Down to that final minute, and once again, things have remained, except for opening a few walls and hatches, very, very quiet across the map so far. Only that elimination of Alems for the members of BDS to fall back on, and unfortunately, with that kill coming out against them, they've not been too confident to make any other type of play. They want Liquid to make the next move here, and they'll certainly be doing it. As we've seen, they've established every type of overwatch that they need to be able to work themselves into it, pop and open the copier window as well, just to make Shaiko check with that extra angle and hopefully trip him up when the execute is ready to move forward. For Nesk and the rest of Liquid, though, still no sign of that actual play coming forward, and they are very quickly running out of time to make it happen. Toxic Babes, only the first one has now been deployed here. Might just have to rush past it, and Bride fends off the first defender here coming in. Resets in PSK, though, get the intel they need to move themselves into it. Bride has been the only hope for this squad, and is going to be the only one left alive, but it's not enough. No one else from BDS able to pick up those frags, and Liquid very low on time, but still able to force their way into the open area for a second round in a row.
Liquid proving there that you really don't need a lot of time to make the magic happen. Achieving quite a lot there. Resets, what a position he played as well outside of that copy window. Opened it up, checked electrical, and immediately removed such a long corridor that Shaiko can now no longer play in with any safety. As soon as that kill comes through, bang, it's open. Sure, he gets taken out, but he'd already picked up 2, and that was so important. The confusion at that point for BDS is going to be pretty real when you are literally getting attacked on every single flank. And again, it showcases something that Liquid have done fantastically well throughout the entirety of Gamers8, and that has been their attacking executes. When they say go, when they press that button, everybody is committed.
It's proven very, very difficult to stop them, at least inside of the secondary site for BDS. Not even going to see their extension beyond this, whether it would have been into Tellers or the upstairs hold. They're just going to go right back down to the basement as they at least had success in locking that in back in round number 1. They're going to look to try and tie things up quickly here with another go at it. Where will they go after that? We'll have to wait and see. More importantly, we'll have to see if BDS will be successful on this second attempt, though. But Liquid will make the appropriate adjustments needed here. He's going to bring out the Jackal to try to more actively track down some of the roam game that we'll see BDS deploy into. And away from that, the Nook also back onto PSK yet again. Try and sneak in the backside and see if he can directly knock out any of these extended elements from BDS.
I'm surprised to see Reset switch off the Zephyr. I feel like the Zephyr has been working really well for them. There's no Finker in this lineup either, which you could argue is a bit of a blunder if Finker's available. Resets, unfortunately for you, you are going to get taken out first there as Alems does exactly what he has been best at throughout this series, and that's picking up an opening kill and retreating back to site. On the Vigil this time, and it's the first time we've seen him bring it, so maybe just causing that little bit more confusion there for the drones and the ability to actually search out these roamers. Alems is going to be successful as he was in round number 1. Now, maybe that bodes to a BDS round as it did then as well. But certainly losing resets on a Jackal, it's a lot less utility lost than if he was on the Zephyr, for example. You're looking toward the Inox tracker, you're looking for a couple of smoke canisters. But realistically, I was surprised at the Jackal pick to begin with.
PSK and the rest of the members of Liquid trying to make up the difference now, is able to pressure out some of that play from the main stairs, but the drone, of course, will reveal the Vigil. And Alem still is hiding at the midpoint on that staircase here. Lots of cams set up as once again the Valkyrie is through for BDS2. Shaiko going to be able to deploy out towards that and give a horde of information. This is on top of the bulletproof that Renshiro is also able to deploy, I believe, establishing some overwatch for the garage area. Away from this, though, Liquid has been able to move in. There's no resistance from BDS to prevent that server control. Not that they would really need to. They've already got the 5v4s. There's no need to extend their hand and play additional risk into trying to bring it down to a 5v3. Hatch will be opened up. The wall breach will allow the members of Liquid to go for the plant, and indeed, going to go for it quite early this round in comparison to the previous two here. Much more direct access point when compared to the previous rounds, but a beautiful tap from Shaiko. Has to go for the second attempt on it, but it does find Ask. And eliminates at least one of the potential carriers of the case here. Now putting that pressure on the Palu instead to try and get this case on the ground.
Usually want Parley with a gun in his hand, not a case, but needs must, and he really needs to try and make some magic happen here. Got the Banshee, got the Black Eye camera, but the Toxic Babe comes flying on over. Nesk, you get a glimpse, at least you see the knee. Alems is going to get called out and finished off there, but there's a long way for Palu and Nesk to go here. 24 seconds left as Palu now pushes on through aggressively, but the cover has disappeared. Shaiko picks up his second kill inside of the round, goes for an ambitious C4. It's going to give him a rotate through, and that's all he needs to pick up that final kill.
Bit too one-dimensional, unfortunately, on the push coming into it for Liquid that time. BDS never really had the garage or the locker setup destabilized at any point to it. So while, yeah, we had our one player hiding out behind the soft wall next to the site go down, it was ultimately a moot point. Good attempt from Ness to try and bring it back. Knew he needed to get aggressive here, get in the face of BDS to make them shake a bit, as that would have also left room for his teammate to get the plant down on the ground, but just too little too late. Unfortunately, BDS already with far too much control over that situation and an easy capability to pinch it out with one trade.
I can't believe we've not seen a knock go through Garage. That is like the trademark of a knock.
To be fair, there's been like 2 to 3. There's been like 2 cameras in there almost every round so far that they've played basement, so.
It's difficult as well because Liquid are really struggling against the Valkyrie, and we commented on it at the time. It's been brought up on the desk that if you let leave Valkyrie open on bank, Shaiko is going to play them, and Shaiko is going to get kills off the back of that information. And sometimes we're only seeing those cameras removed in the final 30 seconds, like that last round. There was 2 that got removed in the final 30. They've gathered so much info and done so much harm up until that point. It's all right leaving it in, but you've got to have a willingness to either actively search out that utility or bring the IQ and try and work that into the lineup as well. We're not going to see that. Instead, we're just going to see them look to, deal with it almost and try to find them manually. But it's always going to be a little bit more of a problem when you're giving a team like BDS that much more information.
So tied up, but important to note that BDS has yet to find success outside of that basement. Going to be going to new horizons for this round, however, as we'll see them instead deploy to the second floor hold here. Now, in a lot of ways, this can be even more difficult than the open area for our defenders to play into, mainly because of the repel pressure that can come in from the attackers. So you've seen this from BDS already playing not into that initial room where the site is actually located, but the next one over, such as Janitor, to try and fend off some of that pressure by eliminating its capability here. Obviously, it leaves that window open, but Liquid as well will have their own set of issues because of the setup from BDS. They'll have to take some time, clear out these sight lines, either by forcing the players back or eliminating them outright before they can potentially allow some of their teammates to work their way in through the breaches on that left wall or via other methods, such as a direct swing in or something else.
I'm expecting to see a lot more nade pressure here, given that Liquid are bringing more than they have in any other round. Seeing Resets give himself a couple of options here to throw nades through. Unfortunately, it's going to be fairly close to Brede, but he's on the other side of a hard wall and a solid floor, so no damage to be done. Alems has flipped and flopped from kind of one scale of the way to the other and going on to the Echo. We've seen him be very active throughout the course of this game so far. Resets isn't going to really know his luck there. I don't think he was quite going for that.
I think he just accidentally killed a Yokai drone with his nade there.
I mean, a Yokai for a nade, it's not terrible. He could have got a kill as well. It would have been wonderful.
Obviously, he was trying to go for a little bit of an under nade there, but did not manage to work it out. I think the intel was way too late on that one. Didn't even really see any silhouettes following up from that nade spot, so not going to lead to a whole lot for Liquid. Still another one being thrown out, another set being deployed against Renshiro. Only about 5 to 10 damage from each of those nades, though, so nothing that he needs to worry about in the long term here. That's just one extra bullet that he'll have to be careful of in the next fight, but still very much in fighting shape for when he is thrust into his next engagement. Not a lot working out for Liquid here inside of the first 2 minutes to clear things out, and we have reached that pivotal 45-second point, but Shaiko, as well as Rafal now, going to be caught. Suddenly, Liquid has every element of this working into their favor, just off of the 2 kills against Shaiko and Rafal. PSK with the clean plant coming from those kills. We see the Toxic Babe come in, but he's got an easy path out the backside here. No real way for BDS to start contesting against this. They're going to have to get aggressive, and Bride now lost as well to resets here. Another pickup coming in from the repel positions as well. Has left Alems all on his lonesome now in a 1 versus 3. Post-plant positions are well established, so he is going to have to get hyper-aggressive to get any of these kills. That may mean jumping out to get one, and that would pretty much remove all of his remaining time bank, so we'll just see him get picked off instead. It's another clean one, surprisingly so, from Liquid as they take the lead yet again at 3-2.
I wouldn't have been surprised to see LMs flying out of a window then. Just trying to get a couple of kills.
Just trying to pad it a bit.
Just trying to pad a couple more kills, because he can't be far away now. If he keeps going in the way that he has, he's going to certainly be up there in kill leader potential. A great execute for Liquid. Twister, our resident LATAM expert on the desk, commented earlier. He said, expect to see a lot of OSA plays here on Bank from Liquid. It's something that they love. Granted, it's something that a lot of teams are very familiar with at this point, but Liquid are very good at it indeed. And they showcased just exactly why they're inside of that round. PSK showed great patience on the repel, using that OSA shield to gather a lot of information without exposing himself, and then was able to move on through, get that plant down, and ultimately win the round and take the lead here ahead of our final round as the sides currently sit.
Back over towards open area for the last defensive bout for BDS. Not going to see any huge change-ups once again, and this could be part of the problem for BDS's defense here. It's just the inability to kind of move on towards new pastures in the strategy department when it's proven that the previous one does not work. But I'll hold my tongue on that for just a moment. See some slight changes, mainly Renshiro going over to the Legion, and a bit more of an extension towards the second floor, it looks like, with those reinforcements as well. So might be trying to play a bit more heavily into that in hopes of slowing down the clear from Team Liquid.
I'm glad to see that Resets has dropped the Jackal. We didn't really get to see what he was going to do with it, but still stand by the fact that the Zafira is a much better choice here, as he's a bit of a demon on the old LMG, and we see him make great use of the lifeline, already looking toward that copy window and looking to put a little bit of pressure onto any defenders that are still hanging around in the side, just hitting a bit of late sight prep. I'm unsure if we're going to see something a little bit quick here, as we can see the diffuser is postulated toward that copy window. Alems draws first blood, resets is straight in. The LMG, it's going to sing, he picks up 2. Rafal, can you do anything to try and stop this? We are going to see a trade, but Shaiko left out in the cold. He's hiding out inside of open. Ask has the diffuser in hand and could look to try and put this down and get himself into a position. Shaiko, how much information have you got, my friend? The answer, not enough. Nesk there comes away with the final kill. Liquid pull off a fast one here to close out that first phase.
It's all a moot point now, but we need to see BDS find a way to stem the tide on those all-in executes from Liquid. Just cannot win out any of the gunfights, especially when Liquid full commits to it. I'm not sure if it's confusion in the comms, players getting caught out of position, or just an inability to land their shots, but either way, something is going wrong every single time for BDS when Liquid was able to establish positioning to go for those types of executes, as we saw, I believe, 3 different times over the course of that half here in open area, and at least once for the upstairs clear as well. Like I said, though, all done now. Not anything that BDS can do anything about is obviously they're on the attack now. It's time to make up the difference here, and quite quickly too, as Liquid once again lock in that same 4-2 scoreline that they had back on Oregon.
They had the scoreline on Oregon, they weren't able to convert it. They did end up losing Oregon at 2 BDS. And I think that Liquid have got to feel a little bit of pain because of that. They were well set to take Oregon, and we could have quite easily been sat here saying all Liquid needs to do is win a couple of rounds, and they are going to be going through to our grand final. But the flip side of that is BDS. They need to fight back here to avoid taking us to a 3rd and final map inside of the best 3. I'll be honest with you, Blue, I wouldn't be mad if we got all 3 here. I could watch these 2 play Siege all day long.
Definitely the case, so we'll have to see if Liquid can keep their strength going for themselves. 3 more rounds is all they need, but it'll need to be another gargantuan comeback from BDS, just like we saw on Oregon, be able to trigger a 2-0 victory for them. Start things out here is going to be a pretty much expected lineup. And we even get a Lems on the Nook, pretty much as we were talking about in the pregame too, so very much going to look for some sneaky plays from him. Just a quick insertion into Copier, though, to try to clear out any of the mainstairs rotations. Does not look like Liquid have committed too heavily to the upstairs floors. In fact, looks like they're going to play much more actively into the horizontal game here, playing towards the blue stairs as well as server room to try and slow down the pacing there from BDS, where we saw BDS themselves trying to do it on these upper floors.
Ness going to be playing Pulse here as well, and Pulse is a very classic operator when you start thinking about Bank. There are so many spots downstairs, particularly in the basement, that you can gain a lot of information for free, particularly in the early round, where you are at no danger to anything, particularly inside of Gold Vault is a good one. You can gather a lot of info there, and I'm sure that he's going to look to rotate there at an opportune moment. Currently just hanging around in Vault entrance as he looks to make sure that Tellers is going to be clear and Banana desk. But that's going to give a good idea to Liquid as to where the push is coming from. It's a nice early warning system, and of course you get the benefit of that C4.
Riyadh and Shiro already worked their way down to the bottom of that blue stairs, and they're going to begin to open up the wall as well to look for opportunities to go for the plant. Pacing is pretty much on par with what we saw from Liquid when they had to go for this style of attack as well. But immediately after we see the wall breach occur, we are going to see that resistance come in via the first Toxic Babe from the defense on Team Liquid. Not that they baited out too, but it's important to note, we do have the Pulse in play for Liquid, and they are actively using it to try to swing out against Shaiko. Shaiko's ready for the first challenge and the second, even mid-Yokai stun as well. Still able to get both of those kills. You see a teammate supporting him, but realistically, he didn't need it as he shuts down both of those players on his lonesome. Now, we have to fall to the inside players where things are looking a little bit better for Liquid. Ask at least fends off the first challenger with Renshiro going down on the sledge. Will Palu be able to strike, though, as now he's lost the support of his teammate in Ask. Lems already searching for that final blow here, and I believe as well, seeing the final Toxic Babe come out. Indeed, it will be with Ask death. As soon as this fades away, BDS will be clear to move in and start their first plant attempt.
25 seconds left and the hot drop comes in. Palu misses the shots, corrects and finishes, but the plant going down. Shaiko credited with his third on the round, and Lems picking one up in between. You can only call that as what it is, and that was a blunder from Liquid. They were searching for kills. It was brilliant as well because Shaiko had just as much information as Liquid had. Liquid had the Yokai drone, Liquid had the heartbeat scanner, they knew where he was, and what did we see when we flicked onto Shaiko's POV? Yellow pings. He knew exactly who and how many people were coming up those stairs. He's on Finker LMG. Little Yokai stun, it's nothing to Shaiko. He's going to cut you down regardless.
It's nicely played by BDS. Much more solid results coming out from this first attacking round. You need to carry that forward, of course, but already just put them one round behind the overall scoreline of Team Liquid as they try to lock in another round to take them down. Team Liquid, of course, moving on from the basement hold, not wanting to retry that again. It makes sense when you consider the fairly one-sided nature of how the round played out, but also some quick adjustments to their aggression could have potentially led to a more successful defense. They'll wait that out, though, as it could be a core part of the strategy just to rotate through all three sites, regardless of the outcome. Then if it's gone bad, we can take a pause, especially considering they're in the lead here, figure out what exactly has been going on each individual site inside of that minute that we'll have for the pause, and look to correct it on the next go-around. A lot of other teams have been adapting that strategy, and I generally tend to agree with it, especially for the defense, when you can dictate when those sites are going to come into play.
Brede going to be showcasing a bit of fuse action for us here. Secondary hard breach gadget being brought as well to assist the Habana that Rafale's choosing to bring. Always a great opportunity to showcase a bit of fuse on Bank with how much vertical action we end up getting. Not only is it a great way to dish a little bit of damage out and to reposition some defenders, it's also fantastically useful for destroying utility. If there's anything in the site that you don't like the look of, whether that be a Yokai drone potentially, you'd be a bit lucky to get one of those, but you're looking maybe more in this round toward an ADS if you can knock one offline and then destroy it so that it doesn't regenerate, bulletproof camera, a couple of different things that you can look to try and target there, and of course more depending on what the defenders bring. It does a great job of repositioning those defenders and can quite often lead to some nice rotation kills.
Quite a bit of a force set up here for Liquid on the upstairs hole, but Shaiko making quick work of at least one of them. 2 more still to go near the janitor and stocks area, though, so it is going to be quite a while before BDS will have the security and potentially leave BDS with an option to completely funnel out all the presence towards the stairs side of open area, which would allow for them to get a clean execute that they could easily translate into a plant. That seems to be the plan here, but with the amount of resistance that's been set up on the second floor from Liquid, they may not get the opportunity to deploy towards it. Reset's going to take a lot of heat. At the same time, Alems will also be able to knock out Nesk. It's not looking good on this hold right now for Liquid. Far too spread out. Finally, Ask is able to bring something positive to this round for Liquid as he sneaks up through the main stairs to grab Alems. But Alems' job is more than done at this point. His death will not mean much to the overall round, as they'll be able to still set up BDS above stock or somewhere else here to deploy that utility. Speaking of which, I think we're about to see the first of those charges come back down into the site. That will clear out some of the presence here, but they still don't have access to the beepers area, so Ask is going to continue to cause problems from the back end. However, with hatch access, BDS might not worry too much about that, as they, of course, have a direct route into the site as of those X-Kairos blowing up.
PSK and Ask with a lot of weight on their shoulders right now. They are the 2 denial operators that have been brought here, and the Toxic Babes are not going to do enough. Only be able to deploy them at the top of those main stairs. PSK first of all deals a bit of damage to Renshiro, but it's not going to be enough. Ask just playing on the double doorway into office. Plant now starting to go down. He's got a real big mountain to climb here. Going to hit a bit of a rotation and maybe catch a couple of kills off guard, but the chance of him actually getting all 4 and the disable on the diffuser here, it is going to be very slim indeed. Doesn't make it past the first hurdle, and what a hurdle it was. Shaiko there ready to shut him down. Alems giving us a little bit of a cheer as BDS slowly creep themselves back into this one.
2 for 2 so far for BDS on the attack, looking to make it 3 here, what will more than likely be the tertiary site for Team Liquid if I was correct about their strategy before. We'll obviously have to wait and see on that, but once again, just way too spread out of a setup here for Team Liquid and way too easy for the members of BDS to deteriorate, especially for Shaiko right at the beginning of the round. Got given a duel against the player sitting in the back of CEO, and as a result of that, things continued to roll well for the team as he was able to negotiate more kills with support of his teammates, taking out the rest of that second floor setup, leaving only 1 to 2 players to defend the actual site. And here we go for Liquid, moving on to a third and final site they'll more than likely play into upstairs on the second floor hold, where they'll hope things will finally come to bear for them here. A few more change-ups to the operator lineup as well, specifically for Paulo, who's going to bring a Warden in to try and stem back some of that flash pressure, if we'll get that from BDS.
Fal going to choose to bring his signature Cali. Somewhat known for his Cali as well, as we saw over on Oregon. Is he going to 6-pick that away? Looks like he's going to 6-pick it out actually onto the Zephyr, so maybe not as exciting as it once could have been, but at least he's going to be there and ready to go with that LMG. We've got the Rotero drones there on Flores as well. You're going to be trying to chew through at least a couple of those deployable shields. It's almost strange to see Liquid opting for this Yokai when you think, we're not really seeing BDS be that plant orientated. BDS are playing very rushy siege. They're not looking to, you know, really take their time and get an execute down. They're often playing for picks. And we're still not seeing the Valkyrie.
No, we are not. Liquid not wanting to play too heavily into that intel game, wanting to rely more so on themselves. They do at least have the Yokais on PSK, and that may be their Valkyrie in their heads to play into here, but obviously the way you can hide those cameras out, we've seen it multiple times, how much has contributed to BDS as well. Definitely can be more useful inside of certain scenarios, but Liquid wanting to play heavily into the Yokais, he tends to be a bit more popular on this map. Good reason too. Nesk going to be actively defending the outside of stock here. Knocks out at least one of the Rotero drones. Probably not going to be the last he'll have to deal with. And again, we can see PSK using both of those drones right now just to keep Overwatch on the usual entry positions for fending off on this site, whether it's going to be front lobby or the back of square here. But not going to be able to spot anything yet, of course, as BDS are biding their time building up their own info bank right now.
Shaiko throwing a couple of nades from below. Doesn't seem to be too successful in doing so. Renshiro just going to clear out stock as we see utilities start to get repositioned now. A little bit of a Kiba barrier there just to keep Ask a little bit safer. Should do something to try and secure that Kiba barrier as well with those ADSs. A couple of magnets kicking around as well. BDS have really struggled to get through that catchy utility that Liquid are bringing. Shaiko entirely unaware. I think PSK knew that the game was up at that point. I think he knew, right, Shaiko's probably heard me here. I'm just going to give him a blast and then just get off the cam because he's going to be able to shoot it out regardless.
Give them the moral victory at least by at least getting the shot off from it, but obviously not going to be any major contribution to the round. This is when Palu's utility will come out hugely though, but BDS not going to find themselves getting baited into it this early on. There's the swing though. Renshiro with the first. The trade is there from Palu though, so the pickup of the Warden works out great, and along with the support coming in from Mask, and Palu again here to defend the main stairs has completely shut down the execute. Even the last player, Rafal, doesn't realize that we have a member of Liquid waiting at the top of square stairs, so that'll be a clean shutdown for them as they finally are able to negotiate around for themselves in this defense on the third and final site that they'll play into.
Palu makes it look so easy on the ward, and he's so effortless in the way that he takes the challenges. Dip him down behind the deployable shield, re-peeking at the right time to catch Renshiro on the hop-in as he's basically unable to do anything. And then great timing onto Alems coming up those main stairs. Really hit every single piece of timing perfectly there in that round. And Liquid needed to. You know, we didn't want to see a similar situation where BDS start clawing round after round after round, and despite the fact that it was a 2-4 split, they end up all things level. So good to see Liquid getting a round under their belt. I feel like they need to work with that momentum now, because we did see them just drop off a little bit toward the latter half of Oregon.
Now Team Liquid still in control of things, but just barely, as they are able to squeak themselves back into a 1-point lead by claiming that result for themselves. Going to have to make some big adjustments to the strategy here on the basement hold if they want to be able to truly push themselves into a map point position where they can now send us to a third and final map. Otherwise, BDS is going to be quickly charging towards a lead themselves by trying to get a second attack, one out here. Here we go, BDS being spawned into it. Mainly able to win out the previous attack on the basement by detaching the members of Liquid. They played a fairly aggressive stance, specifically on the horizontal plane here, but it was all too easy for BDS to pick those players off one by one. Liquid will have to try and keep themselves synced together as a unit a bit more this time if they want to try and find success. But we do still see a little bit of that poke and prod. We'll have to be careful of this. This is, once again, part of the reason as to how they lost it, specifically their aggression against Shaiko on the main stairs. They ended up losing 2 players and left the site defense incredibly weak. We talked about how we were missing this on the last attack, however. Now we're finally going to see it. Lems making a bid for the garage push here on the Nook.
Do you think that Liquid are missing this? Are they sat there going, you know what, guys, I really hope we get pushed from Garage?
No, they've got someone.
Fortunately, PSK on the Echo, it's usually a good place to play your Echo. You're going to want to keep them inside of Garage because it can be seen as relatively safe, especially if you've got eyes in the back of your head, like PSK clearly did there. Took out the drone with a nice little one-shot, and all of a sudden, Alems, he's just not interested anymore.
The first floor has been cleared out. We will reconfirm the fallback from the member that had been positioned out there from Team Liquid, or at least one of them. We'll have to see if they had the right intel as to who the first player was, as PSK was a bit deeper in Garage there, and we only saw Palu for a split second. Potential room for misplay there on BDS if they try to go back into it, but it does not look like they've tried to take that charge as of yet. Still going to see the heartbeat sensor being used. Unfortunately, won't be all that useful at this point in the round, just keeping tabs on the potential position that we might see BDS try to push into. You'll note that that back hatch is also open. Fairly rarely used still, despite it being added a while ago now. Once again, it can be quite difficult to make your impact. There are not a lot of angles where your other attackers are able to support you from that, so it's oftentimes a Hail Mary. Players will hop down that in the hopes that the defenders are just not watching it.
You're talking about hopping down. It looks as though Resets is getting ready to hop up. He's looking at his teammate's screen. He's figuring out the right time to go, and he said, you know what? I'm going to do it. He's got a yellow ping to work with. Is he going to be able to find the kill? Yes, he does. Immediately traded, though. Look at that team play from BDS. Shaiko there ready to shut him down. Not a bad trade, realistically. Both teams coming off fairly equally there. No real utility left for either one of those two operators to provide into the round, but you've just given Shaiko a taste of blood, and he likes it. Nesk first to fall. Renshi, great nade over onto Palu as the pressure starts to build now for Ask. No Toxic Babe canisters left remaining. Shaiko hits the hatch drop. Can he find a third? No. PSK there ready to shut him down. 19 seconds left. Breeday's been down. Rafal does have the kit, but is struggling in the animation. He gets taken out as well. This is a nightmare. Renshiro with it all to do. Picks one onto PSK, but gets taken out. Liquid, hold on.
Liquid get the carrier down and, more importantly, not killed in probably one of the best positions possible. We see that awkward shuffle because of the fact that the pickup key as well as the res key are the same. Oftentimes players will have a hard time. They're not going to be prioritizing the res in that situation, but that is oftentimes the default thing that the game routes you towards. So we had problem getting the case back in his hand to be able to plant it in another position. And as a result of that, Liquid were able to shut the rest of the force, pushing into that site down. Nicely done from Liquid, as they're also able to make BDS second guess their own attack with that earlier trade that had happened via the push coming up through the Oryx hop on the elevator hatch.
Reset's really made a bit of a play there. I know he only got one onto Alems, but you feel like that was so important because Alems was just chilling out and waiting to either drop tellers and drop into gold, or he was going to go through garage. And he was just going to be a nightmare, just at a horrible time, just playing exactly the way that Alems has played all series. So difficult to deal with. So the fact that Resets goes up, and even though he gets traded 1-for-1, it really worked out quite well there for Liquid. It puts them, more importantly, onto a match point. And this time, they have a buffer round. They have an opportunity to make a mistake on one of these rounds, but they do not have two until we go to an overtime. So they are going to take us into office. BDS probably want to look to try and slow things down a little bit here. We're going to see Alems bringing out the Valkyrie, the IQ in an attempt to counter the Valkyrie that Nesk has brought this time. We do have the Yokai as well. Kind of worried about the stack up here, Blue, I'll be honest with you. There's a lot of people in Electric.
It's going to be quick, and they're going to work their way in off of the back of Alems' opening kill as well. BDS, I believe, has Overwatch to the inside of Copier too, but you'll see it. Liquid has no presence here, more than likely with a top down to potentially be established here, but that'll, oh no, that hatch is reinforced as well. There's no easy way to establish these angles from the top end of it here. Members of Liquid going to be grasping at straws for ways to get back into this round. Now, BDS had even brought the fuse as well to try to play for the top downs, but now a moot point with the entire team being on the inside. Oh no, how did that happen? Alems is going to end up accidentally knocking out BDS. He was finally ready to move in from his exterior position over by the copier window, but he ends up routing by the breaching shards and ends up getting knocked out by it. Nesk with another frag as well has even the player count back into a 3v3. So Liquid, well, they are on a timer now. They aren't out of this round just yet.
Nesk needs to try and push himself in here. Shaiko going to be watching onto that double door. This is incredibly difficult here. And you've got to question, how have Liquid not had the information? Nesk swings, finds one, immediately taken down by Shaiko, but the trade's there. There's still time here, and Alems has to hold on. Resets and Palu, they need to pull off a masterclass. Alems shuts Palu down, resets. He's had a fantastic game so far, but it is not going to be enough. Alems there, the star of the show. 3 kills on the round. And maybe, just maybe, the shot caller behind that quick rush.
Well, that hand up from Alems there's like, whoo.
My bad. The pressure was on. He had to clutch that. If he didn't clutch that, BDS, I'm sure, would have had a few words afterwards.
Absolutely the case. Not often that you see a team kill from a breaching charge in Siege. In fact, I think that's the first time I've ever seen that. Thankfully, though, able to make up for that slight mistake. Man, just turns his back to it and everything as well. Obviously, a great moment of opportunity for Team Liquid, but they are not able to grasp control over it due to the strength of Alems inside of the 1v2 clutch. And that takes us now to the final round of regulation, where we need to see BDS complete the perfect set of 2 rounds together and send it to yet another overtime, just like we had in map number 1 on Oregon.
I can't believe Nesk brings Valkyrie and Liquid have even fewer pieces of information. Like, they just had no idea what was going on. So at the time that they bring the most information, they double down on the Echo and the Val. A site rush happens, and we've got Palu still holding main door. Like, oh, one's got to come through here. This is a freebie. Like, don't worry, guys, I'm going to pick one up for free.
It's like whoever finally convinced them to pick Valkyrie just got screamed at.
Yeah, it was like, I told you we don't pick Valkyrie. I told you it was pointless. Let's see how they fare upstairs. Liquid, still a chance to just cleanly take us to a 3rd map. Which really is a possibility here. 3rd map of Theme Park as well, so another I guess map that we don't get to see all too often. Theme Park is more than viable, but it is again one of those maps that does flip and flop quite heavily, as here on Bank. BDS, though, they're going to be looking to get this done straight away in 2. Little Claymore out there just in case of any last-second aggression, as we're seeing the same setup on this door into Janitors. Couple of ADSs, Kiba Barricade. Start of the show last time for me, Palu played great. using the Warden utility, those goggles, activating them, and being able to pop up from behind the deployable shield. Looks as though Lems has gone for a slightly different tact. This is one of my favorite angles on Bank, and I can't believe it's got to this point until we're seeing it. But that really long angle through Kanto wall is fantastic for gaining an idea of what's going on a little bit deeper on towards that Janitor's area. Of course, Azami is going to be there to plug up the gap, and it is going to force a little bit more utility usage.
BDS not necessarily going to be sweating a third map too much if they end up going towards it. We did see them play it earlier on at this event in the upper bracket final of their group versus TSM. And they were able to win it quite convincingly, 7-3. Obviously with TSM having their own caveats at this event too, to be noted there. So we'll have to see if Liquid will have the strength to contest it. Moving back into this round though, is of course we need to see the closeout happen from Liquid to get to that point. A lot of utility starting to be deployed, but not going to lead to a whole lot of damage, at least against the members of Liquid. They're remaining consistent, just looking to lock in a secondary victory as they've already controlled this site for themselves earlier on in the half when they made their first go-around. Obviously still struggling with that open area and basement hold, but this is not consistent so far. They're going to look to try and lock it in to get them that second round that's needed to push them over the edge.
BD's been able to get a lot of lines of sight open there. BDS still don't look too keen on moving. They are waiting for their ducks to line up in a row. A little bit of drone work going on here just to see how the land lays. Shaiko hitting a little reload. Can't start until Shaiko's reloaded, can you? You know that you're going to be at least 15 seconds on the execute, waiting for that LMG to get topped all the way up. Takes a little bit of damage, activates the Adrenal Surge, but it's going to be Palu onto Renshiro again. Renshiro unsuccessful hopping into stock. We're going to get the Dokubi call now just to put a bit of more panic into these defenders, as Bride really is framing himself up for a plant here. There is going to be a little bit of denial left. We do still have all 5 players. Question is there a Yokai drone above? I don't think that there is, at least if there is, well. PSK is not aware of it. It's going to have to be done purely on kills, and Shaiko's going to lead the charge. Picks up 3 along with the Lems, and we're already inside of a post plant. Resets, he's got a mountain to climb, snags 1, upside down repel is no good. Rafale there to close things out. BDS waiting for the opportune moment.
Bit scary as indeed they do eventually find that moment, but it had been avoiding them for the previous 2.5 minutes, struggling very, very heavily to get specifically that first pick, and you could tell they weren't really confident with that play, but thankfully was able to sneak their planter into the site without needing to contest against Liquid. That gave them the confidence they needed to send the rest of the team in established positions to crunch out the remaining defensive setup from Team Liquid, and with that, they trigger a second overtime in this series. Now, a second potential comeback still to come from BDS as well, as remember, they're working back from the same exact scoreline they did on Oregon, and they were able to close that one down in clean fashion. Only needed 2 out of 3 of the overtime rounds to do it. Let's see if the same fate will befall them here in our second overtime now.
Well, we are going to stick to our sides as well. BDS staying on the attack, Liquid staying on the defense. Got to question who that favors, really, because Liquid played exceptionally well on their attacks. BDS have played very well on their attacks as well. So you've got to say that the edge has almost been given over here to BDS. And kind of interestingly, Liquid, they're not going downstairs. They're instead opting to go for open area again. Last time we saw this site, it was a very quick rush attempt. I doubt that we'll see that again. It's certainly not the same lineup that BDS brought for that rush attempt, but they have been successful here in other ways.
It's really the big problem for Liquid when it comes to their site choice. They don't really have a good site they can fall back on, as there's been issues present in pretty much all 3 of the ones they've played out. So really up to personal choice here, and I can't fault them going back to open area. Things obviously a little bit of a fluked victory for BDS being able to find an opening there. Liquid just really not ready for that ultimately. They're not going to be considering that too much in their minds when they go back to it, as they'll be focusing up on a much more solid strategy like we saw back on the first attempt to defend it earlier on in that half. That's really what they're thinking of, and that one was relatively close. They're thinking that they can make the adjustments necessary from that round to be able to control it here in overtime and give them the first of 2 needed.
You have the Valkyrie again here, Shaiko. Getting caught out on the camera and just having a quick duel with Ness. Gets dealt a little bit of damage, but can be easily juiced back up. He's looking to command the top of these square stairs and keep a good eye on what's going on inside of Archives below. Do have a couple of players from Liquid hanging around in that area, so they do need to be a little bit cautious. Ask and Reset's both going to be occupying this space. C4's primed and ready as they are conscious that there's going to be some sort of a vertical clear coming in here. Alems is flexed this time over onto the sledge as the Lion scan comes in just to root these defenders in position for now. It's a dangerous time in the round because BDS, they're not looking to move too quickly. And when they're not looking to move too quickly, you know that things are getting a little bit dicey because they are really lining themselves up for success.
Makes sense. Still sitting here, waiting for an opportunity to potentially frag up. Doesn't want to expose himself too heavily either. Liquid have oftentimes lost the first player in this defense. They need to try and keep themselves strong. Will still need to be careful, though. We believe we have the fuse. Never mind, that did get re-picked out. Hadn't initially picked, but went away. Because obviously BDS hadn't gotten a huge amount of use out of that utility, so we can perfectly understand the reason to not bring it into this situation here. But certainly would have been something to bring it to bear now to flush out the open area hold that we're seeing from at least a few members of Team Liquid. First stun charge going to work its way in against PSK and Ask. Minimal effectiveness against them, though, when Renshiro quickly rotates over towards Copier to see if anybody would have gone for that after getting stunned out. Not going to end up happening. The bait doesn't work, and the rest of BDS, at least up until this point, are struggling to make their entries. But Shaiko, I believe, hops right down through the hatch, gets the first kill against PSK. But now where do they go from here? Only 30 seconds left as well to make their bid and at least start the plant. Nicely done. That adrenal surge just saved Renshiro's life. He had gone down for a split second, but in the process, managed to knock out another member of the squad as well. And now another kill will be brought up, this time by BDS to take down Resets. Nesk and Palu scratch that. Only Palu left in the fray. Palu will get one for free here. In fact, he's already claimed 2 for himself, so it's not impossible. But positionally, he's going to be pushed out of this site quite heavily. The planter, though, revealed to him. They don't know where he's playing from just yet, but he'll take one bullet, a passing glance against him as he now has to hunt. Oh no, he might have made the critical mistake here. He still thinks the player's by beepers, but BDS, he's lost him as well. Finds him now, and is going to be able to shut him down. The first of 2 locked in for BDS. Only one more needed to give them $95,000 worth of an upgrade in their prize pool, and the first of 2 spots in our grand final tomorrow.
You could almost hear the clown music started to play as BDS let Palu get past him there. The timing was beautiful, and if Palu would have just randomly checked behind him, it would have been very possible indeed. But BDS showing that they do not need to rush these rounds. They are very happy to perform under pressure. Get Shaiko in, let him have a fairly slow start into the round. Just don't make him rush for anything. And as soon as he finds that space, bang, activated. Picks up a couple of kills and makes it look easy. Liquid, it felt like they were sweating on the site because they'd given away that much map control. They weren't able to hold on as hard as maybe they wanted to some of those areas, particularly the top of square stairs. There were soft challenges that were really going in there. I don't think it's any surprise to see, I assume we're in a timeout here for Liquid. Is it too late though, Blue?
That's always the big issue here. Once again, they've taken the timeout, or we even saw this potentially happening back on Oregon too, where they were maybe going to take the timeout when it hit the 6th round. Seems like something that they're willing to play into, though, so it's something they have experience with. We've seen it happen in the past. I personally think it's a little bit too late, given the fact that, again, they've now got to be perfect for the next 2 rounds, but thankfully it is just that. So better now than never, ultimately, here for Liquid to try and correct onto something, especially considering they're going back onto the attacking side, where we had seen a lot of positives for Liquid earlier on in the game.
This is exactly the game that we want this game to be, though. You know, we want the semi-finals to be hard fought. We want overtime in every single map. We want to see all 3. We want both teams pushed right up until the edge, because that's what's happened here tonight. There's not been a great deal separating either of these 2 teams. We've seen overtime in both games. BDS have had mirror scorelines of 2-4 after their first half and have still been able to pick up 4 rounds on the bounce in some cases to get themselves back up level, take us to an OT. Are they going to repeat Oregon here and lock in Bank? It does remove the chance of a theme park if they do so, but Liquid, maybe they've just had a good conversation. Maybe they've been able to iron a couple of things out and they've figured just exactly how they want to approach this and play. It's a slightly different setup that they're going to be going into, though. Renshiro's going to bring the Goyo. We've not seen that yet today.
It'll be so unfortunate, too, if Liquid has built up this whole strategy. It's now going to be potentially countered directly out. Keep in mind that this will be a double delay composition from BDS. They're going to play heavily into their own setup, because not only do they have those canisters, and if you haven't watched Siege in a while, you might not be remembering the fact that it doesn't have the shields behind those anymore. It's just the canisters themselves, but it ended up being a little bit of a horizontal change for him, as the timer for those actual incendiary effects got pretty much doubled up to about 20 seconds, if I remember correctly. That built up on the top of the 3 toxic waves, which bleeds out about 40 seconds worth of pressure as well. Is going to be a lot for Liquid to have to burn out before they can even think about going for a plant.
Palu's in a dangerous spot, isn't he? Pushed down through dirt. He's got a little bit of drone information here from Ask, but Renshiro is going to be there as well, and I think that Renshiro was the unknown factor there. Shaiko just going to flick through, shows a couple of the vault cams that he's rocking with as he keeps a close eye on that entrance into Garage. It hasn't been somewhere that Liquid have been interested in pushing, and we've kind of criticized them for that. I feel like a bit of a Garage presence would have done them quite well. That being said, Palu has achieved server control, at least for the time being, but he's not on a great operator. He's on the book. You don't really want the book in that position.
He's got more players coming to support him, and I imagine there will be a few others joining up relatively soon too. Ask is here, can begin opening up the angles. This team will want to try and play into their plant positions, and as well, with drones moving in, you can see them starting to spot out some of these Goyo canisters that they will have to be able to take down here before venturing forward for the plant. There's going to be the opening made by Ask to try and pop things open for himself. Should be successful in doing so. Nothing will be holding it back on the defensive side. But with that explosion, that's also going to activate at least one of the Goyo canisters. They place it directly on top of that breach, so another 20 seconds going to be bled away. Like we can't even think about moving in until we hit about 50 on the clock, and even past that, BD8 more than likely in position to start immediately chucking those toxic babes out. If he chains all three of them together, that's going to leave Liquid with about a 15-second window to be able to get themselves in without having to rush past that. Liquid realize that this is a factor, however, so they're going to look into other options. They've opened up the two other hatches and may very well be looking at an option to execute through that direction.
PSK had pointed himself in the direction of Garage as well. We've got Nesk primed and ready on the hatch, looking for a drop, uses the cover of an explosion to do so, and he's got a red ping to work with, but unfortunately for him, the timing isn't quite right. BDS, they're going to start to find a couple of kills before we see Liquid fight back. It's all down to PSK. We've been asking for the Garage push for so long. He finally gives it us, but is it going to be enough? He's got 3 kills to find in 15 seconds. 5 seconds a kill isn't a lot, especially when you're going to be going up against the might of BDS. Lems hits him with the swing. Who better to finish off the job here? BDS through to our grand finals tomorrow.
Massive victory here for BDS as it will push them so much closer to our grand prize as well. So much cash on the line, and of course, quite a few of these players also going to be hunting for that MVP as well as kill total bounty. We'll have to see if they can get it, but it's a successful day regardless for BDS as they surge forward, upgrade their prize pool to a minimum of $250,000 with the potential to double that once again in the grand final as well. We'll have to wait till tomorrow to see if they can do it as other wild or the local heroes and the Falcons will be looking to challenge them. We'll have to wait and see in our next matchup who will be able to make it forward, but indeed, one of our 2 slots is now locked in as BDS surges forward for the EU region.
I love seeing what it means to the players as well. You can see BD8 there really pleased themselves. Obviously, Lem's quite an emotional character as well, and it's nice to see their initial reaction just to the fact that they have been able to do it, and almost against all odds, right, Blue? They didn't look good in the opening part of either of those 2 maps, but they had that fight right up until the end. They had enough gas in the tank to really take Liquid the whole way, and you've got to start asking a question of Liquid there of, you know, how many times can you afford to let it slip?
Definitely the case. A bit of a rough game for Liquid as well. Running themselves into so many different situations that seemed avoidable as well, but not able to work themselves out of it, so they end up dropping it here on map 2. Such a momentum killer for them as well when you consider just how BDS was able to win both of these maps, starting down 2-4 on both of them, and both times a direct comeback, only needing 2 rounds in overtime. Liquid have to be sitting there thinking to themselves, how do we lose this game in that same exact fashion on both of these maps? They'll certainly be going back to the drawing board tonight before they relax a bit. Obviously, their tournament is over. They need to figure some things out before they can truly sit back and watch the rest of the festivities.
I think it's almost credit to BDS in the way that they played as well. They were very adaptable and they weren't letting anything get them down. The last round did not affect the next round. They played fantastically and they deserved the finals. All
right, ladies and gentlemen, we've got an interview ready on the stage, so let's head down to speak with our winners.
Elems, we're back on stage. You've made it. BDS are the first finalists for the Rainbow Six Siege, well, final for Gamers8. It's absolutely unbelievable. What a turnaround from being 6-4 down, claiming the victory at 8-6. First off, how are you and your team feeling right now?
To be honest, we are feeling extremely happy, obviously. Like Liquid is a very great team, very good match as well. And I'm very happy about the resilience of the team. I mean, we were behind on both maps, and we just adapt all together, find solutions, and it works. So yeah, we are so happy.
فريق BDS بعد الكمباك اللي سووه في الماب الثاني قدروا يكونون هم اول فريق يوصل الى الجراند فاينل معنا في جيمرز 8 ريمبو 6 سيج. السؤال الاول كان يتركز على نقطه انه كيف شعور الفريق بعد الفوز، كانوا جدا مبسوطين وقالوا احنا مبسوطين اكثر شيء قدرتنا ان نقدر نسوي كمباك، لانه حتى في الماب الاول والماب الثاني كلنا كنا بيهايند وقدروا انهم يتكيفون على لعب الفريق، مع انه فريق ليكويد كان ادائهم مره ممتاز لانه قدرنا نتكيف على طريقتهم وقدرنا ناخذ الجيم.
Well, you mentioned the style of the win and the pace of the game as well. You said that it was very, very close. So were there any like surprises along the way that maybe you and the team weren't expecting from Team Liquid?
No, to be honest, we at the start of the match we expected a very hard match. I mean, those guys are the best, like one of the best team in the world. So yeah, we expected a hard match. We got a hard match, and yeah, that's it. They play good. I think we played good as well. It was close, and we managed to take the win at the end.
سألناه السؤال الثاني كان متركز على نقطة انه فريق تيم ليكويد هم ادائهم مرة ممتاز، هم يعتبرون من الفرق الافضل في العالم، فهل هو في من الاشياء اللي كانوا يسوونها في الجيم كاسترات او طريقة لعب كانت غير متوقعة من فريق BDS، لكن كان جوابهم انه لا احنا اصلا كنا متوقعين مباراة صعبة وفعلا قدرنا ناخذ مباراة صعبة، لكن بنفس الوقت يعني احنا حاولنا اننا نعرف طريقة البلاي ستايل حقهم وقدرنا نفوز بهالطريقة.
Well, you can relax now for a moment because you know that you've got the final coming up tomorrow. I have to ask you, out of the two teams, are we leaning more towards a Falcons rematch for you, or would you like to go up against Wild?
To be honest, I don't know. Like Wild is a European friend, so obviously it will be a good match. But Falcons is from here, Saudi, so of course it will be insane as well. So I don't know. I really don't know.
السؤال الأخير كان متركز على نقطة إنه هل يفضلون فريق BDS إنهم يواجهون فريق وايلد أو فريق فالكونز في المباراة النهائية؟ قالوا إنه فريق وايلد يعتبر فريق أوروبي وودنا إحنا نواجههم، بالعكس بتكون مباراة حلوة، لكن بنفس الوقت فريق فالكونز هو الفريق المحلي من الشرق الأوسط، فكان ودنا إننا أيضا نواجههم، فما يدري صراحة، ودي يواجه كل الفريقين بس ما يدري مين الأفضل.
LMs, thank you so much for joining us on stage. Congratulations to your win. Go and relax, and we will see you in tomorrow's final. Everyone in the Gamers8 arena, please give it up for BDS. We're going to be throwing over to a very short break, but don't go anywhere because we will be coming right back here onto the main stage for our second semi-final of the day. Don't go anywhere.
بناخذ فاصل سريع اعزائنا المشاهدين والحضور، وبعدها على طول نروح للنصف النهائي الثاني معنا ما قبل الجراند فاينل غدا ان شاء الله، فلا تبعدون المباراه الجايه الكل يبغى يشوفها، الكل ينتظرها، كلها ثواني وراجع لكم على طول.